Street. Is there anyone on the commission that wants to hear that case? Is there anyone from the public present that wants to hear that case? Is there anyone on virtually that wants to hear that case? And we'll take that one on consent. Next one is vacation 2023-00036. Vacation request in the city to vacate drainage and utility easement, and building setback at Harbor Isle Commercial, second edition on property zoned general commercial, generally located on north of West 40th Street North and east of North Seneca Street. Anyone on the commission want to hear this case? Is there anyone present from the public that would like to hear this case? Is there anyone on virtually that would like to hear this case? If not, we'll take that one on consent.
Move to approve 3.1, 3.3, and 3.4.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I move to approve item number 3.2.
Aye. Second it. I second it.
3.2, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll move on to public hearings. First one is 4.1, Con 2023-00042, conditional use request in the city to allow for vehicle sales on the front 1/3 of a lot fronting on 21st Street located approximately 450 feet east of the intersection of North Tyler Road and 29th Street North. The address is 8620 West 21st Street North. Anyone on the commission want to hear this case? Is there anyone from the public present that wants to hear this case? Is there anyone remotely that wants to hear this case? If not, we'll take 4.1 on consent. 4.2 is Con 2023 conditional, 00043. Conditional use request for vehicle equipment and sales outside on property zoned limited commercial, generally located on the west side of North Hillside Avenue, within 500 feet of East 13th Street. The address is 1305 North Hillside Avenue. Is anyone on the commission? It's a denial.
We have to hear it. It's recommended to be denied.
Okay, we'll hear that case. Moving on to 4.3. This is Con 2023-00044. It's an amendment to the existing conditional use permit through the Board of Zoning Appeals in 1293 in the city to increase the number of cars that can be displayed at the site in a property zone limited commercial, generally located on the southwest corner of East 13th Street and North Delrose Avenue, 4615 East 13th Street North. Is there anyone on the commission that wants to hear this case? Is there anyone from the public present that wants to hear this case? Do we have anyone on virtually that wants to hear this case? If not, we'll take 4.3 on consent. Moving on to 4.4, it's Con 2023-00045, conditional use request in the city to permit an accessory dwelling unit zoned two-family residential, generally located on the east of South Belmont Avenue and 125 feet south of East Street, commonly known as 408 South Belmont Avenue. Is there anyone on the commission that wants to hear this case? Is there anyone from the public that's present that wants to hear this case? Is there anyone on virtually that wants to hear this case? If not, we'll take 4.4 on consent. 4.5, we received a request to defer that case. So I believe it's for 2 weeks, correct?
Yes, sir. And I would just add that it was a request by the applicant, and so that is effective immediately.
Is this not work? Kirk Sponsel, Deputy County Counselor. If I may, could we first make a request to see if anybody is present or online who is wishing to speak or hear the item?
Yes. So we'll hear that comment today.
It would be my recommendation. It's my understanding that a request for deferral for 2 weeks was requested by the applicant. It would be my recommendation that the board make that consideration by a vote. If someone were wanting to defer the item, it would be my recommendation that they make a motion. And also as part of that recommendation, it's my understanding that our prior practice has sometimes been in these circumstances to allow people who are present or online who would prefer to speak today the opportunity to speak and have their comments considered for the next hearing on the item.
Should we take that right now, or should we go on through the agenda? Let's take it
I would
right
recommend
now.
you take it now in case people are
Yeah.
waiting on the outcome.
So first of all, I would entertain a motion to defer this case for 2 weeks.
So moved.
Second.
Could you ask for hands of how many people want to speak?
Yeah, let's go ahead and approve this, and then we'll move on, because we have to approve it anyway, I think. So,
This is discussion, sir. I want to know before I vote.
yeah, how many people present would like to speak on this case? 2? It's item 4.5, conditional use request. Okay, so we have 2 people that want to speak on it.
So does the
Mr.
motion,
Aldridge? Oh,
so does the motion include, do we want to hear it today?
I believe we should give the person, if they want to, an opportunity to speak today. Is that correct, Counselor?
As a matter of procedure, certainly it's up to the commission if they want to allow the deferral. But what could be done is the comments could be taken today and the actual hearing of the motion held 2 weeks from now. And I would request that the exact date be given out for public, specifically beyond the 2 weeks.
Mr. McKay?
Does this mean we're gonna hear the whole case? Or just let this
Well,
person stand
I
up and talk
guess
about
if
it?
we're going to hear a comment on it, we'll have to hear a staff report, correct?
Mr. Chairman, I think we ought to ask if they want to speak today, if we're going to defer it, or they want to come back when they do hear the case.
Could I ask the member of the public if they want to speak today, or do they want to come back when the case is being heard?
Yes, we would like to speak today.
Okay, well, I think if they're going to speak today, we probably ought to hear the case. Don't you think?
I don't believe it's absolutely necessary. It's come to my attention that that the applicant is not actually present right now. I was just informed of that. I think what could be done is comments could be taken today without the full presentation of the item. And then the item could be presented 2 weeks from now at a specific date. And those comments then could be basically taken into consideration as well. I would view this almost similar as if somebody were not present, but they submitted written comments on the item. So I think comments could be taken today, and there is an option for comments to be made 2 weeks from now as well at the exact hearing date, or the commission so choose, but not the same people.
Okay, then we will not take that on consent. At the time we come to this item, then we'll let this person speak, or should we let them speak now? Okay, well, we're going to allow you to speak on this case right now if you like. If you'll please go to the microphone.
There's been no formal motion submitted. If that is in the interest of anybody, as my understanding from some of the comments are, it would be a motion to defer to, it would be a motion to defer the item to October 12th at the 1:30 MAPC hearing for the formal hearing, but also with the opportunity for anybody present today, either in person or online, to make any comments today for consideration of the item on October 12th.
So moved.
So we had a motion. Are you willing to incorporate that into the motion? And do we have a second? Second. Okay, we have a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 So now I would call on the member of the public to come forward and speak. You'll have 3 minutes, and please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Samantha Vu, and with my husband sitting there is Thomas Vu. We live at 1113 South Bracken Circle, Wichita, Kansas, 67207. And thank you for letting me have an opportunity to be here. We are the owner of the land west of the proposing event center, and we're here to oppose against it due to one important factor. We would like to know what is the maximum capacity that the event venue can hold. With the venue, there can be hundreds to probably thousands of vehicle trips per day on 127th Street South. Is the owner planning to pave 127th? We're in the process of platting our land into 12 lots, where we will have 12 residential houses on it. The county requires us to pave 127 for 1 mile from the arterial point in order for us to plat our land, because with our 12 residential homes that it will be on it, it will increases the traffic counts of what the county is having now of 218 traffic counts per day on 127th. The cost to pave that 1 mile on 127th is estimated to be $1.2 million or even more. So with the traffic coming in and out of this venue, we believe that their traffic counts will exceed it way more than ours. So if the Board of Planning Commissioner is going to vote on passing this event and does not require the owner to pave the 127th, then why are we required to pave the 127th in order for us to plat our land? So, thank you.
Thank you. Your comments are recorded and will be considered at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Question? Right. Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else from the public present who would like to comment on this case at this point? Or virtually? Is anybody on virtually? Okay, then this case is deferred. Moving on to 4.6, CUP 2023-00029. This is a minor amendment in the city to a CUP 164 to allow vehicle equipment sales on parcels 5A and 5B generally located on the south side of West 21st Street North with 1 quarter mile east of North Tyler Road, commonly known as 8515, 8535 West 21st Street North. Does anyone on the commission want to hear this case? Is there anyone present from the public that wants to hear this case? Is there anyone on virtually that wants to hear this case? And we'll take this case on consent. Next case is 4.7, zoning case 2023-00049. Zone change request in the county from LC Limited Commercial to General Commercial District to follow for the future development generally located on the southeast corner of South 5 and East 60th Street South. Is there anyone on the commission that wants to hear this case? Is there anyone from the public present that wants to hear this case? Okay, we will hear this case. Moving on to 4.8, it's zoning 2023-00050 in connection with CON 2023-00047. This is a zone change in the city from general office district to limited commercial district with a conditional use request for a mobile food unit in the city. It's generally located on the west side of North Hillside Avenue within 275 feet of East 2nd Street North, commonly known as 233 North Hillside Avenue. Is there anyone on the commission who wants to hear this case? Is there anyone from the public that would like to hear this case? Okay, we will hear this case.
Move to approve 4.1, 4.3, 4.4, and 4.6.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Now we are going to Board of Zoning Appeal cases, which we have several today. First of all, I'd like approval of the minutes. And again, we show that Blick and Warren were absent from that
Move to
meeting.
approve.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
First case to be heard is BZA 2023-00028. It's a variance request from the city to reduce the side and setbacks for a carport, commonly known as 212 North Elizabeth. Is there anybody on the commission that wants to hear this case? Is there anybody from, excuse me, Scott?
Sorry, sir. Mr. Chairman, just a point of order on these. For all of the BZA cases, we've found that staff recommendation is that all or part of the applications do not meet the 5 criteria for all 3. So I'm afraid these would have to be heard.
So we will hear all of those. And I guess, again, bringing it back to the beginning, we will recess the Planning Commission meeting and go into the BZA cases. Go ahead with the first one.
Good afternoon, Board of Zoning Appeals. Philip Zievenbergen for planning staff. The first one is BZA 2023-28. The applicant is requesting 2 variances. We should note that this is coming back to the BZA. It was originally heard on June 8th, 2023, and the BZA voted to defer the item in order for the applicant to get a survey done on the property to determine the actual distance from the building to the property line. There was a second deferral due to a lack of getting a survey done in time, so we are now hearing it today. As a review of the case, the applicant is requesting to reduce the rear setback from 5 feet to 16 inches for a rear addition on a detached garage. This rear addition started construction without building permits, and then they're coming in to essentially make the building addition in compliance with the zoning code. The second variance is to reduce the interior side setback along the south property line from 6 feet to 3 feet to bring an existing carport into compliance with the zoning code. The property is zoned SF5, single-family residential. This was not a part of the original request. However, we did consider it on June 8th, but in review of the property, the carport was out of compliance. And so if they were coming to the Board of Zoning Appeals for a reduction in setback request, this was also included to bring the entire site into compliance if the Board of Zoning Appeals were to deem the variance request meet the 5 criteria. The property is developed with a single-family dwelling, a carport, and a formerly detached garage, which has been connected to the principal structure via a breezeway, and again, a rear addition onto the garage. Paul, can you go to the survey, please? The survey indicates that the rear addition is 3.4 feet from the side south property line. And it shows that the closest point is 0.3 feet from the eastern property line, which is the 16 inches they're asking for. The survey indicates that the south building line of the garage, a new addition, is at an angle. You can see it's not necessarily parallel to the property line. It's slightly at an angle, which means it gets closer to the property line as you go west. The survey indicates a 3.4 foot dimension here, but there's no indication of a dimension here, and it is unknown if that part of the building is 3 feet from the property line, which is what the request is for. Just a review on the history of this, the carport has been in existence since 2003 and was not installed by the current owner. However, the rear addition is something that the current owner is undertaking, and again was started construction without getting building permits. The code requires a minimum of a 20-foot rear setback and a 6-foot side setback and a single-family SF5. Again, if this was a detached garage, the setback on the rear would be 5 feet. But again, they're asking to go down to 16 inches, which is where the rear addition currently sits. Character of the neighborhood is mostly residential. They're all zoned single-family residential and developed with single-family homes, except for the building directly to the west, which is zone GC, and is developed with an auto repair shop. Can you go to the aerial photograph, please? Or the aerial map? Something that staff took into consideration is an existing building on the property to the south on the rear of the lot is built on the alley property line on the rear. The rear addition to their garage would generally mirror that portion of the setback. So staff did two analyses, one for the carport and then one for the rear addition. I'll start with the first one for the carport. So these are the review of the 5 criteria. The first one is if the request is unique to the property. They didn't necessarily specify how the request for the carport was unique. However, historical aerials show that the carport was constructed in 2003. So staff believes that this is a unique feature in that it has been there for some time and it was not an action by the applicant. Second criteria is that the granting of the variance will not adversely affect the rights of adjacent property owners. The applicant states that the reduction in the setbacks for the carport would not have adverse effects on the rights of adjacent property owners. Staff agrees with this statement. Again, historical aerials show that it's been in existence for about 20 years and it has not had detrimental impacts thus far. Criteria 3 that states that the strict application of the code would constitute an unnecessary hardship to the applicant. The applicant states that the strict application of the code would result in an unnecessary hardship because it would not allow the opportunity to enlarge the home and accommodate the existing carport. Staff is in agreement due to the small size of the carport. The applicant has limited, and small size of the lot, the applicant has limited options for expanding on the property. Number 4, the variance would not adversely affect public health, safety, morals, welfare, general welfare, and harmonious development. The applicant states that the addition was built with craftsmanship to match existing property and continue harmonious development in the community. Staff is in agreement with this, saying that the variance is not having an impact on the general public health, safety, and welfare. The carport is architecturally compatible with the principal structure and continues the harmonious development of the community. And number 5, the granting of the variance will not be opposed to the general spirit and intent of the code. The applicant states that the addition to the property will be done in a manner not to interfere with the applicable code. As long as building permits are obtained, which is a condition of approval, staff is in agreement with this. The request is being considered for existing carport that has been there since 2003. It's currently out of compliance with the code, but the approval of the variance would bring it into compliance. If it was a detached structure, it could be administratively adjusted to a smaller setback in order to bring it in compliance, but since it's attached, they have to go the route of the variance. So overall, staff believes that the 5 criteria for the carport do exist. Staff does not believe that the 5 criteria for the rear addition onto the garage exist. So we'll review that at this time. So again, criteria 1, is it unique to the property? The applicant states that it is a unique condition due to the sewer line, and that's the sewer service line that connects the house to the sewer main in the alley. They didn't want to build over top of it in case they needed to replace it. Staff does not agree with this because they have not illustrated or indicated where that sewer line is. Without knowing where the sewer line is, it's hard to determine that they didn't have another alternative to put an enlarged building on the property. Number 2, that granting of the variance would not adversely affect the adjacent rights of property owners. The applicant states that the reduction of the setbacks would not have adverse effects on property owners, and staff agrees with this statement. Criteria 3 is the unnecessary hardship. The applicant states that it would be an unnecessary hardship because it would not allow them to enlarge their home. Again, staff does not agree with this. There's no indication of where the sewer service line is to indicate that they didn't have another opportunity to enlarge or put an additional building in their backyard without knowing where that sewer line is, and they did not indicate that they didn't have any other option. And number 5, number 4, it does not adversely affect public health, safety, and welfare. Staff agrees that the variance would not have an effect on the public health, safety, and welfare. Again, we pointed out this building where it generally matches up with the rear of that building. Doesn't seem to have any effect on the surrounding development. It is architecturally compatible with the home. The 5th criteria was not imposed as spirit and intent of the code. The applicant states that the addition to the property would be done in a manner that does not interfere with the applicable code. Staff does not agree with this because they started building it without seeking building permits, which is opposed to the intent of the code. And And so they're coming in to get that essentially forgiven in order to continue and finish the construction process. So again, staff feels that the 5 criteria for the carport is met, but the 5 criteria for the rear addition is not met. Should the Board of Zoning Appeals deem that all 5 criteria exist for both, staff recommends conditions in your staff report that it be built per the approved site plan in addition to obtaining all necessary permits and inspections from MAPC. We can go through site photos here real quick. This is looking at the front of the home. This is the existing carport. Next picture. This is looking from the south to it. You can see the carport, which extends kind of with the breezeway to a garage, and then the addition to the garage to the rear. Next picture. This is looking south at the property. Next picture. This is looking from the alley to the west. This is the rear addition to the garage. Next picture. This is looking north along Elizabeth. Next picture. Looking to the south. Next picture. And this is looking to the west at the commercial building across the street. And I can stand for any questions.
Go ahead. I guess one of my questions has probably already been answered, but the applicant, they're the ones that have built the structure, correct?
Yes.
And in the event that the request is denied, what happens to the structure?
It would have to be removed.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of staff from the commission? Excuse me, go ahead. Joe?
Yes, where else on the site were you indicating that it could be built?
They do have buildable area in their rear yard. Their statement was that they didn't want to build over the sanitary sewer service line to the main, but they didn't indicate where that line was, so we
That's
don't know.
not on the survey.
No. So they do have buildable area that would meet the setback. We just don't know where the sewer line would be to say there would be a restriction to not go over top of it.
Mr. Aldridge?
Couldn't they backscope it to find out exactly where that line is?
They could, but they haven't indicated to planning staff where it is.
Okay.
Any other questions from the commission? If not, agent or applicant, please come forward. You have 10 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name's Angel Huerta, here on behalf of my dad, Jose Huerta. The address is 212 North Elizabeth, Wichita, Kansas, 67203. I know there's questions about the sewer line. We didn't know if that needed to be put in the survey or not. If that's something we need to have done in order for this to be approved, that's something we're willing to do to show you that exactly where it's at. That way you know why we couldn't build on the other side of the property line. Like I said, we're here to bring everything up to par, get whatever permits we need to be able to continue with this project.
You have anything else you'd like to say at this point?
That's all I have. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Pardon? Yes, Mr. Aldridge.
Why didn't you locate, first of all, the sewer, you can scope it to find out where it's located. And just out of curiosity, why in the world didn't you get a building permit?
We didn't think we needed to have one. We had done an addition a long time ago towards the front of the house. And they had told my parents that if they were building backwards, they wouldn't have to need one. So that's why he went ahead and proceeded to do it that way.
Who's they?
I'm not quite sure on who the inspector was. That's probably something we'd have to locate in the paperwork that was given to us in order to get a name for you.
Probably should have done your due diligence a little bit before you started a
Yes, sir.
project of this magnitude.
Mr. Blick,
Can we go to the north side view of the carport? It was back one. Did you guys build this carport?
We did not build the carport.
Okay, I was just wondering, because I noticed in the center, I don't know if it's a light, it looks like it's starting to fall through the middle. Second question is the structure that you built in the rear, the garage, is that just for a garage or is that also for living?
It's kind of living to kind of help with space that we need.
Okay, that's the question. Thank you.
any other questions of the applicant from the commission? Thank you for your comments. At this point, is there anybody from the commission that would like to speak on this? From the public, right. Is there anyone present from the public that would like to speak on this item? Is there anyone virtually that would like to speak on this item? If not, we'll bring it back to the commission for action.
I assume then there has been no adverse comments.
I'll defer to Philip on that one.
Not to my knowledge, no.
So if this is actually going to be an accessory dwelling as opposed to what we're looking to provide the variance for, how can we actually approve something that hasn't been filed to become an accessory dwelling?
I'll take a stab at that. So the variance they're asking for is a setback. That's for this structure. The use is another matter. If it truly is going to be an accessory apartment, they will need a conditional use for that. Which I don't believe they've applied for, correct, Philip? No, they've not.
No.
In fact, I think this is the first time we've heard about it.
So can we go back to the aerial? I assume those white buildings are built right on the alley.
Yes, sir.
This is one of those cases which we don't like, but I'm going to make a motion we approve.
Can I clarify and ask that we vote separately on these two items, since the one is pretty straightforward and the other is absolutely not? And I would also ask, just to make sure we all know where we're at, can I have a legal opinion? As I understand the statute, all 5 findings need to be found before we can approve. Is that correct?
Try your mic again. There you go.
Yeah, statutorily, all 5 elements must be present to approve.
So we would have to find alternative findings to the ones staff found as not appropriate?
That's correct. If they have issued a statement saying that they don't feel it meets the condition of the statute, then you would need to have an alternative finding saying why you think it does.
Okay, did we have a full motion or not?
We
All
don't
right.
have a motion at this point, I believe, do we?
I'll make a motion we approve the carport.
So to find that all of 5 findings have been found And
Yes.
I would, and second, all right, for the carport variance be granted. I would second that.
So
And that's
we
from
have,
20 foot to 16 inches, correct?
Whatever's in the staff report
The
as far as the
carport is for the
distance.
side setback down to 3 feet.
we have a motion and a second for the addition on the carport, correct?
Setback variance on the carport.
Right. All those in favor signify by saying
Aye.
we want a motion on the second part of this.
I think we need some discussion first.
I was just gonna make a motion to deny that setback for that structure.
I will second.
Have a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Same sign, motion carried. Oh, are there anyone opposed?
Aye. Aye. Let's do a
I
roll
think it would
call.
be helpful to do roll call.
Yes, sir. This is on the motion to deny the variance for the vacation, sorry, for the
No, the variance.
variance for the setback to the alley, for the addition onto the garage. All right. Fox,
Aye.
Dool,
Aye.
McKay,
No.
Green,
No.
Bill Johnson,
No.
Blick,
Aye.
Nix is absent, Foster,
Aye.
Warren,
No.
Joe Johnson,
No.
Miles,
Aye.
Hartman,
Aye.
Aldrich,
Aye.
Williams Bay.
Aye.
8 to 5.
I show 8 members voted for it, 5 members against.
So the motion to deny passed.
Okay, motion carried. And we move on to the second case, 00048.
Yes, this application is a variance to reduce the street side setback on a property zone TF3 located at 2803 East Mossman Avenue. The property again is zone TF3, which require a 15-foot zoning setback along North Volusia Avenue. You want to go to the site plan, Paul? The site is currently vacant, but the applicant is proposing to construct a dwelling and a detached carport. The purpose of the vacation would be to reduce the setback for the carport. Staff wanted to note that with accessory structures, the zoning code requires a 3-foot separation between structures. And so though the site plan shows a 7.5-foot setback, the setback would actually be reduced down to 4.5 feet to allow for the necessary separation, which still constitutes the variance, so there's no harm done there. Again, the property is currently undeveloped. In 2021, up until 2021, there was a structure on there and has been demolished, I believe. The surrounding character of the neighborhood is residential. The properties are all zone TF3. Some of the properties are developed with single-family residences, and other properties are developed with duplexes. If you want to go to the aerial site, please. The criteria for granting the variance, staff does not find that all 5 of the criteria have been met, and we'll go through that review right now. The first criteria is the request is related to the uniqueness of the property. The applicant states that the property is unique because it is less than 6,000 square feet. Staff did not agree with this statement. The placement of a new carport on the property is not created by the applicant. The minimum lot size for the single-family dwelling in TF3 is 3,500 square feet. Therefore, a lot of less than 6,000 is not unique. Number 2, the granting of the variance would not adversely affect the rights of adjacent property owners. The applicant states that the reduction in the street side setback for the carport would have no adverse effects on the adjacent property owners, and staff does agree with that statement. Criteria number 3, would it constitute an unnecessary hardship if the variance was not granted? Applicant states that the shallow depth of the lot creates a hardship for the construction of a new and functional single-family infill with the carport. Staff does not agree with this statement. The applicant has the option to place the carport differently and at a different location. The site plan showed that the dwelling would face Mossman, and it is the preference of the applicant to use the existing drive and have the carport also facing Mossman. But as you can see, alternatively across the street, there's the opportunity to actually make the carport perpendicular and have access off of Volusia. Volusia is a local street and does not have any access control. There would need to be like a driveway permit through Public Works and Utilities, but generally access is not prohibited. Additional access onto a local street is not prohibited. With the site being vacant, they have the opportunity to basically define the lot the way they don't have any restrictions right now. They could orient the carport differently. So staff feels that this does not meet the 5 criteria. Criteria number 4, no adverse effects on public health, safety, and welfare. Overall, staff does not agree, or staff agrees that the granting of the variance would not have adverse effects on health, safety, and welfare. Criteria number 5, granting of the variance would not be opposed to the general spirit and intent of the code. The applicant states that the carport does not violate the spirit and intent of the code and would not impede or encroach on any of the neighbor's property or diminish their property value. Staff agrees that the granting of the variance would not be opposed to general and spirit intent of the code. The code allows a 50% reduction in setbacks by administrative adjustment for areas under 300 square feet. So depending on the size of the carport and the location of it, there would be the opportunity to reduce it down to 7.5 feet if it could also meet the minimum separation requirements. So there's kind of a twofold thing to that. It would have to meet both of them. Again, overall, staff does not feel that it meets the 5 criteria. If the BZA determines that it does, the conditions of approval would be that carport be constructed in substantial conformance to an approved site plan. Again, it would have to be revised to show the separation, and all building permits would need to be obtained. We can go to site photos, please. This is looking east towards the lot. Next picture. This is looking south towards the lot. This is the existing driveway. Next picture. This is looking across the street to the north. Next picture. This is looking across the street to the west, and I can stand for any questions.
Does the commission have any questions of staff at this point? Mr. Aldridge.
Where do you, maybe I phrase this thing right, where do you think, on staff's judgment, where the carport should be located compared to where the applicant wants it?
If you want to go to the site plan, please. They could orient it perpendicular or I guess parallel to the house and have it facing Volusia. They could meet setback requirements or even request an administrative adjustment to reduce down to 7.5 feet and have access off of Volusia, but it could be oriented to the side. And therefore it would fulfill the spirit and intent of the code more holistically if they were to make it perpendicular to its current orientation, oriented towards Volusia. It would be parallel to the house, and there would be less of a setback reduction, and therefore coming into more compliance or upholding more of the spirit and intent of the code.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions of staff? If not, we call on the agent or applicant to speak. You have 10 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Kevis Harding. I am the Executive Director of Hope Community Development Corporation. I'm also the lead pastor of Delrose United Methodist Church. Been pastoring there for 25 years. We created Hope out of Delrose to create a nonprofit to help build homes for low to moderate income individuals, along with the homes that you see here that we're doing now are for those who can't afford to buy a home right now, but would want to lease. And so these properties will be for lease, but they're still set up that we create space that when they lease it, they begin to become owners of it. And so if you see the site plan, I'm looking at it here on the screen. Thank you, staff. Also, great work. And they taught me a lot. This is my first time here, but my third time putting this application together, trying to meet those five criteria. If you see the site plan, the reason we were trying to again, we're a nonprofit, so everything is raise money. And to go in and a part of the hardship was use the existing driveway and to come on back up and then just go over to the side and put the carport to the side there. The house will face actually on Mossman. If we tried to turn in a different direction, we couldn't fit the three. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 1 level, no basement. It's an A-frame, and you can basically sit. Part of my when the staff disagreed was number 1 and number 3. And if I'm correct, I believe that's right too. With that disagreement, we were looking at if we could use the driveway to bring it up, because we're looking at the side. It was if you can recall, most of those homes along Mossman were duplexes. And you can see where the driveways are either on the left side or right side of the duplexes. And to put a single family home there, which we're trying to do with some more properties in that area, which we've already got permits for, and we already cleared those hurdles. So we're starting to actually break ground today on one property down the street because it meets all the criteria, and we don't have to be here for this one. But this one, we had to do it. And the reason for that is because for the cost to cut out the curb for those who are in construction, concrete, rebar, all that. There's depth that you have to build for a approach. It costs a little more money, but when we can use the original approach and we're only doing a single carport, so we can if you can see, we're actually using the same carport and bringing it up. It reduces our costs. It saves us money than trying to put it off of Volusia, and it helps us keep the original design where we can actually put a 3-bedroom, 2-bath on that property for our residents. And hopefully, I explain best of my ability of hopefully getting this approved and making this place sustainable for new homeowners that are already interested in the property. Any questions?
Yes, sir. So you're looking at your main reason is just because of the potential additional cost of the approach?
That was the main, that was part of the hardship, that part. And then number 2 was the actual space of for the house itself, where it was, I think it was a TF3 zoning. I believe that's what it was. But it was zoned for those duplexes, but we're trying to put a single residential house there with a carport. And so we need that setback to 7.5 build. But the short answer to your question is that's main reason, number 1, and number 2 is this the house itself to be able to put it on that lot.
Philip, do you have a comment?
I just wanted to clarify to make sure you understand the question in terms of turning a structure only applies at the carport. There's no issue in the house facing Mossman. The question about orientation is only for the carport. Does that make sense? So we're not saying that the entire design has to face Volusia. Your house can face Mossman as it is right now.
Okay.
The staff's comment was rotating the carport, so the carport faced Volusia and just the carport.
So basically you're saying put the carport off of I'm looking what you're saying, but the carport was set up so that you can actually walk in from that it's going to be a door here. So when you come out, part of this is safety too. For me, as being a former police officer, is that once you come off of your carport, you can go straight into your house. And this is off the cuff, asking that question, is trying to figure out how to make that carport driveway easy accessibility into the house. Because there's, unless you're going to bring it all the way up to the middle of the house and into the back, I have to sit down with my architect to find out what would need to be done.
Sir, I really appreciate what you're doing to try and provide housing, but honestly, looking at this, if you rotated the garage 90 degrees, that's a long driveway and a lot of concrete. You're going to be spending, I think, probably more on the concrete for that drive than you would spend on a curb cut on Volusia.
Great.
I think this is solvable without having to have the variance.
Yeah, and thank you for asking that, because that was part of one of my questions to the architect. When you see where that drive, I think it was a picture where that driveway comes all the way up to that dotted line, and so all we would have to pour would be just the driveway, because it already has a drive. So we have to mess with that part. That's what we're trying to save
Yeah,
money.
and I understand that, but looking at the photograph, the entry right by the curb cut still looks like it needs to be re-poured. That's not in terribly good shape. But even so, going all the way back to the other end of your property from there, you're going to pay more for that than you would pay for the shorter driveway off Volusia. Yeah, I think economically you'd be better off rotating it, honestly.
But I would definitely consider that, particularly with the architect, and make sure that could, work. I was just trying to make sure because all I was going to do with this driveway here that you see on the screen was basically, remove the grass, clean out the gutters, and then pour from there up. But
Ms. Fox, you have a comment?
I would like to suggest that you go back to your architect to see if that couldn't be flipped. Either flip the house plan so that the entry could be on into the carport, because you'll save a lot. And there's also a safety issue. People are not used to that driveway access onto the east-west streets anymore, because the majority of them are on the north-south. And you'll have to re-pour that approach, I feel confident. So maybe this could be deferred till you could get your plan redrawn and make sure we can meet the setbacks on the east-west side, because I think those are allowed. That would give you that space to get your three-bedroom house, because we all want you to get a three-bedroom house on there.
and to help me out, can you go back to the site plan so I can?
Can I make a motion? Are you comfortable deferring it so that you could take a look?
Yes.
I move that we defer this item. Think a month would give you time to get it redrawn and look at it again?
Yes, ma'am.
Second.
Let's wait and see if there's any comments from the public here. Thank you for your comments, sir. Is there anyone present from the public that would like to speak on this issue? Is there anyone virtually that would like to speak on this issue?
Does he need to come back more if he doesn't?
Okay, at this point, thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments.
I have a question.
Yes.
If he does what was suggested, he doesn't really need to come back here, does he?
Correct. At that point, he would withdraw it, correct? So, but we need to defer. That's all we can do for right now.
Was there a
Any other
second?
comments from the commission? Mr. Green?
Yeah, I've got a substitute motion to approve the denial of the variance.
Scott?
If I may, just a point of clarification, that if it is denied, then they don't have the option of coming back with another application. So that's the only difference between the deferral and the denial.
Would they need to have a variance if they rotate the
They would not. They would be in compliance with all the setbacks. The reason why they've requested the variance is because of the orientation and the way that they want to lay it out, as shown on the site plan. If they rotated the carport, as has been discussed with the access off of the north-south street, then they would no longer need.
So they wouldn't need this variance, they wouldn't need this hearing at all?
That's
why-
correct. Then they could withdraw their
That's the
application.
reason for my motion to just go ahead and deny it.
But that reduces our flexibility, I think.
Wouldn't
That
precludes anything for a year if they do that, right?
Wouldn't it be best if just to go ahead and defer it, and then instead of denying it, because that like puts the final nail in that proverbial coffin, if you will. This way here, if the applicant makes those changes, he wouldn't even have to bring it back. And that might be a lot cleaner. You can just withdraw it.
I don't think we have a
Mr.
second,
Blick?
do we?
No.
I'd agree with Bob Partridge on this, just because if he goes back to his architect and then finds out, he's still gonna have to pour concrete all the way around the house, cause you gotta have concrete for a sidewalk up to the front of the house and maybe down to the side of the house. So it might be cost effective, or he might be decided if he has to come back to us, so I would be in favor for the deferral.
I would entertain a motion
There was no
now.
second to my motion, so, yeah.
There wasn't.
Died for lack of second. I would entertain a motion to defer this item.
We already have, that was the primary motion. You just need to call the
And a
primary
second?
motion.
Got a second? Okay, all those in favor of deferring this action, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, could you make a specific date to the referral if it's for the?
Motion carries.
We need a
It would
specific,
be October 26th, would be 1 month.
I abstain.
did you see that one abstention?
Okay, wait a second, we have more Mr. Williams Bay has to abstain,
Okay,
but we deferred to October 26th. And just for the record, Mr. Green has left.
okay, the record is clear. We'll now hear the next case, which is 00050.
Yes, good afternoon. Once again, Philip Zevenbergen for the record. BZA 2350 is a variance request in the county to the Sedgwick County Sign Code to allow a second 100 square foot monument sign on a property zoned SF5 on the northeast corner of East Central and North 143rd Street East. The property is addressed at 14533 East Sharon Lane, and it is currently under construction to build an educational center. Section 6-346B3 of the Sedgwick County Sign Code limits a property to 132 square foot sign, but it does make a provision for institutional uses to have 100 square feet for signage. The applicant has installed 2 monuments with the intention of installing 2 signs. One of them is placed on the southeast corner of 143rd and East Sharon Lane, which is up here. That one has been permitted by MAPCD for a sign. The second monument with the intention of a sign is on the northeast corner of East Central and 143rd in this general vicinity of the property. As you can see, properties surrounding it are a combination of SF5 and SF20. They're all located in unincorporated Sedgwick County. Most of them are developed with residential uses, and then the property is bounded by I-35, the Kansas Turnpike, on the southeast side of the property. In 2018, the planning director determined that the current BZA, which is BZA 2018-33, allowed for the learning center to be considered akin to a school, which is what is allowing it to be an SF5. Again, staff does not find that all 5 criteria are met, and we'll go through that review now. Criteria 1, again, is uniqueness of the property. The applicant states that the property is unique because it's 25 acres in size, bordered by arterial streets, as well as the Kansas Turnpike. In the Overbrook neighborhood, the site has other unique features such as an adjacent floodway, drainage easements, and retention pond. Staff does not agree with the statement above. Installing a second monument sign is a self-imposed issue. It's a convenience for them. The Sedgwick County Sign Code applies uniformly to all properties in the county. Criteria number 2 is that the variance would not adversely affect the adjacent property rights. The applicant states that the sign will not be visible from adjacent neighborhoods, and the stone monument sign at 143rd and Central would be placed away from the nearby houses. Staff agrees with that statement. Third criteria is the unnecessary hardship. The applicant states that the current allowance of 1 sign at 32 square feet is inadequate for the project of this size. Staff did not agree with this statement. The sign code sets regulations that are applied to all properties, regardless of size in the county. And when you think of unincorporated Sedgwick County, there are residentially zoned properties of very large sizes in most of the county. The desire to provide additional signage for the identification purposes at multiple locations is a preference of the applicant and not a hardship imposed by the code. Criteria number 4, the variance would not adversely affect public health, safety, and welfare. Applicant states that allowing the reduction in setbacks for the proposed sign location is in the public's interest. Oh, I'm sorry, I misread that. Basically that it's in the public interest to allow for additional identification. Staff agrees with this statement. The variance would not adversely affect public health, safety, and welfare, but possibly harmonious development. Criteria number 5, granting the variance would not be opposed to the general and spirit and intent of the code. The applicant states that the granting of the variance is not opposed to this general spirit and intent of the code. It will enhance safety by helping identify the education center's campus to their clients and other motorists. Staff does not agree with that statement. There are no similar adjustments to the sign code that would otherwise permit a second monument sign on this size of an SF5 zoning district. Again, just because this property is 25 acres doesn't necessarily afford additional sign rights. So again, staff does not feel that all 5 criteria are met. If the BZA finds that they are met, it would be approved per the conditions of the staff report, and that all permits be obtained and the sign would conform to the Sedgwick County, all the other provisions of the Sedgwick County Sign Code. If you want to go to, they've got illustrations and elevations of the sign. If you want to go to the sign elevations, this is a property under construction. This is the floodway and floodway easements. That's why the building is set so far back on the property. This is the proposed sign at 143rd and Sharon Lane. Next one, please. And this would be the sign at 143rd and Central. Go through the site photos. This is from Sharon Lane looking south towards the property. Next picture. This is looking north from that entrance to the neighborhood. Next picture. This is at 143rd and Central, and you can see the monument has been constructed with the intention of putting a sign at that location. Next picture. This is looking north from Central. Next picture. Looking to the south. Next picture. And I can stand for any questions.
I must declare I had ex parte discussion on this project.
Mr. Aldrich.
Just for clarification, the second monument sign is already under construction, correct?
The monument is, the sign is not.
Okay.
Ms. Fox.
So if that monument had no words on it, and it was like a landscaping, identification little pretty wall there, it could be a part of their landscape and it would be fine, is according to our code. It's just the fact that words are on it.
Right now it's a monument. There's no words on it for identification, so it's not a sign. Something akin to that is our sign area for like a large shopping center only include the actual verbiage. The pedestal that it sits on is not part of the calculation of the sign.
Mr. Blick?
I know on the BZA, we've approved, I think there was a heart hospital that was up north that they could have an arrow and it said like emergency or different like away direction. Can they do that on that, or would that still be considered a secondary sign?
I'm going to defer that question to those who know the nuances more than I do.
I think if,
Can you state the question again, Mr. Blick?
The question I have is I've seen businesses do secondary signs, but mostly the secondary is a waypoint, so it has an arrow and has a direction. I didn't know if that secondary sign could actually be, if it did say the name of the business and had an arrow or not. It would still be a sign instead of a directional sign.
Any other questions of staff?
Yeah, Philip, as he's coming up, how big is this actual sign?
They're requesting it to be 100 square feet.
Kelly Dixon Metropolitan Area Building and Construction. The answer to your question was that would still be considered a sign and would still have to have the variance.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Are there any other questions of the commission for staff at this point? If not, we will allow the applicant or agent to come forward and speak. You'll have 10 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. I'm John Lay with George Lay Signs. I have with me today Janine Phillips, who's the director of the Phillips Fundamental Learning Center that's under construction. This is Lori Guthridge with GLMV Architects, who's done a lot of the site work on the project. And then, did Mike come up too? Okay, our contractor was here also. When we worked this project and got all the drawings from the architect, we thought we were in good shape. We made the mistake of assuming we were annexed into the city on this property. And instead, we discovered at the end, after we filed a city permit, we discovered that we were actually in the county, which was our mistake on that. But I know it's fairly common to have schools and churches on single-family residential in both the city and the county. If this were in the city, and of course nearby properties with institutional uses are in the city, they would be, given the size of the tract, they would be allowed 2 monument signs at 100 square feet each by right. When we learned that this was in the county's jurisdiction, we discovered that was knocked down to just 1 sign at 32 square feet. We believe that the site is very unique in that it's about almost 25 acres, and about half of that is made up of drainage ditch and retention ponds. So, and the property is going to have a lot of trees at the corners, so it was important to them. They want to be identified out on the corner as well as up closer where you can see the building. One technical correction to what Mr. Sevenbergen said, the sign that we have already permitted by right is one that would be at the corner of 143rd and Sharon, immediately to the west of, where you would come into the property. The one we're asking for the variance to allow is the second sign that's down at 143rd and Central. So had that reversed. So thank you.
Hi, Janine Phillips. I'm going to give you Sharon Lane's address, or I can give you my home, either one. 14533 East Sharon Lane is this property's location. We're currently doing business at 21st Street and Grove. That's where we are right now. We lease property from the city. I want to tell you a little bit about why and what we do. It's Fundamental Learning Center, or Phillips Fundamental Learning Center. We work primarily teaching teachers how to teach children who are dyslexic to read, write, and spell. That's our mission. It's been our mission for 22 years, so I've been at this for a very long time. We have grown our practice. We are the only site in Kansas doing what we do, and that's working to improve the lives of children with dyslexia who struggle to read, write, and spell. We're accredited nationally and have grown it from just small groups of training to now training across the country and around the world. In 2018, we started a school for children because teachers would say to us, I can't figure out how to incorporate what you are telling me works in my current classroom. So that's why today we have 70 children that we will be moving in 2 weeks to this building into our laboratory school. Anybody in this room is invited to come, observe, watch what we do. So that's our mission, and our vision is all children reading, all children succeeding. What we figured out in 2001 is what we're doing for children with dyslexia works for almost all children, with the exception of 5%. So that's what we do. That's our mission, our vision. And I really appreciate getting this opportunity. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lori Guthridge. I'm with GLMV Architecture. The address is 1525 East Douglas Street. And I'm here to, we passed out a few little images in front of you. I'm here to kind of explain a little bit of the aesthetic and design intent, as well as address specifics within the criteria that we did not see eye to eye on. So the first image that you're going to see there is basically what the sign is going to look like. The image on the screen is somewhat outdated in the sense that the butterflies on the corners have been eliminated. So we're basically just looking at that image that you're looking in front of you is a mock-up that John did, so that the board could see, as well as people in the neighborhood, what the sign would actually look like. That's the sign on Sharon Lane. And as you can see, it is fairly simple, elegant, and understated. The low linear profile mimics not only the architecture of the building, but is intended to blend in with the landscape. And for similar reasons, the natural stone was selected just for a natural aesthetic. Criteria one, I wanted to mention in terms of the uniqueness of this site. What's really unique about this site is that floodway kind of parallels 43rd Street, which requires that we place that building from either 43rd or Central Street almost 330 feet off of the back of curb. So viewability is very limited. If you look at the second and third images that I have in that packet, that's your view from 143rd and Central. You can't actually see the building. If I'm understanding your code correctly, we are allowed a monument sign and a building sign. Because of the uniqueness of the site, the building itself is too far away from the road for a building sign to have any effect at all in terms of wayfinding or identification. So that is the uniqueness that we consider. So what we're asking for is, in lieu of a building sign, if we could get that additional monument sign on the corner of 143rd and Central to assist with wayfinding. So in terms of criteria 3, which was another one, the hardship that we feel we are encountering would just be the lack of identification, because our building is, because our site is unique and our building is so far away from the street and you genuinely cannot see it coming or going. Wayfinding is very difficult, and I know this because I have missed this building numerous times and I worked there. So if you miss the turn on the corner, you have to go a mile in either direction in order to turn around and come back. And what most people, I think, will do is go through the neighborhoods, and that's not really what we want to impose on the neighborhoods. Also, by putting that on the corner, we're asking for that variance to the allowable square footage, because we again have, this is a crazy little site, but we have an 85-foot easement, utility easement, on both Central and 143rd. So when we orient the sign, it has to be far enough outside of those easements to be constructed. So the readable face of that sign is in excess of 100 feet from the corner. That's why we're asking that our lettering be allowed to be a little bit larger, just for clarity. And then the final.
We have 1 minute left.
Okay, final criteria. In terms of meeting the spirit, we really do feel that it does. And if you look at the very last image, this is immediately across the street on 143rd Street, Pinehurst. They have a monument sign on the corner of 143rd and Central, as well as an accessory sign further down on 143rd, exactly the condition that we're talking about. In terms of the spirit, we feel like what we're requesting is basically a monument sign in lieu of a building sign. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Boom.
For your good testimony. Yes, Mr. Johnson.
You presently got the building under construction?
Yes, the building is almost
Okay.
complete, actually.
Who did you obtain the permit for to build this building? Was it county or city?
It was the county.
Okay.
Yeah, we worked with Gary Cox. Yeah.
Mr. Joe Johnson?
Number one, I think you ought to be commended for the placement of the building on the site. Saving all the trees along there just makes it I think, a great site for the homeowners that live across the street. And I totally agree with the sign in that location, because as you're coming down Central, you really need to see where you're going to turn left on 143rd. So I certainly see no problem with this. I had one question. What did the sign actually look like? This isn't the sign, is it?
That's the Sharon Lane sign.
Right.
The one on 143rd is going to be 6 feet tall, 39 feet wide, with a very similar aesthetic.
How tall?
6 feet.
Okay.
And it's a very similar aesthetic in terms of the lettering. I think in addition, the wording, John, help me with this, please. What's the additional wording beyond the Phillips Fundamental Learning Center?
The taglines.
So it's, yeah.
There we go.
Yes, so it'll have those taglines in addition to what you're seeing on that image. And then, like I had mentioned, the butterflies that we had on the corner, that's the Fundamental Learning Center's logo, but we opted to leave those out. We really are just trying to go for a very low profile, simple, elegant sign.
I think this is very well done, and I commend you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Foster.
And this may be a question for staff or someone else, but has anybody, do I understand correctly that if this was in the city, we wouldn't be having this discussion? And has anybody considered the possibility of having this parcel annexed?
I guess the answer to the first part of your question, it's my belief it would be allowed by right in the city. As far as possibilities of annexing and so forth, I can't speak to that.
Thank you. Can I ask staff if that is?
So if it were within the corporate limits of Wichita, I'd have to do a little more research. I'm not really certain it would be completely legal, because the sign on the corner is usually counted half against each frontage. So it'd go half against Central, half against 143rd, which means we'd have approximately 150 square foot plus another 100 square foot, which would be 150. which would then exceed what's permitted. And because again, it's SF5 single family, so it's fairly restrictive.
Okay, thank you.
So is the west side of 143rd is in the city limits, right?
Negative, that is not. That's in the county. It's an improvement district.
Are there any other questions of the applicants this time from the commission? Yes, Mr. Williams Way.
Just for my own understanding, if you don't have that sign located at 143rd and Central, how do you find your way into the site?
Are you asking us that question? That is our point, exactly, because you don't see the building at all. And what we're afraid of is that people like myself will drive by it.
I agree. I mean, with the tree line there, there's no way to find your way into that site without the sign.
Okay, thank you for your time. You will have a chance for rebuttal after we hear public comment. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak on this case? If so, you have 3 minutes. State your name and address for the record.
Thank you for inviting comment. My name is Jane Harwell, and I live at 14631 Sharon Lane. I am a resident of over 25 years in Overbrook, and I very much appreciate the signage restrictions in Sedgwick County, having lived in areas that don't take the care to do that. So I do want to express concern about the stature of the signs that are currently incomplete. I feel that they are of a stature that is more commercial in nature, and in comparing them to those in the general area, they seem much more imposing than those in a residential area. So I would just request that variances not be granted to preserve a long-standing residential area.
Thank you. Are there any other folks from the public here that would like to speak? Yes, go ahead. You have 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record.
Mary Patton, 863 North Stagecoach Street, Wichita, Kansas, 67230. I am here on behalf of the Homeowners Association of the Overbrook neighborhood that this property is a neighbor to. We did submit comments electronically that I am not sure that, I don't know if you have, so if you do, I could just take questions on those if you have them, and or else I can kind of give you the basics in my 3 minutes.
Is that one of the letters we have? Okay. Does anyone have any questions of the speaker at this point?
I do. The applicant stated that they're concerned that if there's not clear signage to enter their property, that traffic could go on into the neighborhood. And if it's not active yet, it's kind of hard to judge, but do you have any concerns about increased traffic if people don't find their way quick?
Well, we've had concerns about increased traffic in the neighborhood just from the school itself. So that argument wouldn't hold weight on our staff. I suppose, probably to make it brief, our homeowners association we talked about this at length. I would say that we will be glad that the butterflies at the big sign on 143rd and Central, if it's approved, will not be there. We thought that was a little excessive. Our main concern, we had made a determination we would not oppose granting the variance of this second sign if it truly stayed within the size that it's stated now, and that there's not to come back and do another one. Our other concern, however, is there's a base for what appears to be a third sign at the actual driveway into the school, and we have no information on what that is, And our concern after seeing schools and churches and other things in areas is we do not want a digital or an LED kind of sign that is a message board, broadcast pictures, all of that, because that we feel is definitely detrimental to the neighborhood and also constitutes a safety concern as people slam on their brakes to read what's on the sign. But we don't have any information, and when I talked to zoning staff, they had no information on this possible third sign either. And it's kind of confusing because there's partial lettering on it that now says MCB Drive, and we don't know what that means.
Your time is up, ma'am. Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else present from the public that would like to speak on this? I might remind the commission that we received 2 letters, and one of them was our last speaker referencing this. Is there anyone virtually that would like to speak on this case? Seeing none, I'll bring it back.
Is there a good way to raise my hand, or do I just start talking?
Please give us your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
I'm Andrew Clark, 515 North Birkdale Circle, Wichita 67230, and I am the president of the Crestview Country Club Improvement District. And we would, in addition to Overbrook, be opposed to granting the variance along similar bases. We don't think that commercial belongs in the improvement district, and while this is being considered a school, and if that is the way that the school is being allowed into the district, I think it should be treated as such, and signage should be kept to a minimum. And there was a question on annexation, and just for what it's worth, the property sits within the improvement district, and there was a vote a number of years ago about annexing the improvement district into the city of Wichita, and our residents voted against that, so the property would not be eligible for annexation. That's all I got.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else on virtually that would like to speak on this case? If not, I will bring it back to the applicant or agent, and you have 2 minutes rebuttal to the comments that were made.
Again, I'm John Lave, George Lay Signs, 1016 North Waco. The plans that were drawn did have 3 monuments, one at the corner of 143rd and Sharon, one at the corner of 143rd and Central, and then a smaller one to mark the entrance to Fundamental Learning Center, which was denoted as MCB Drive. That's a smaller one. When I took it to the county inspector and told him this was to mark, it was a directional in nature to mark the driveway, he made the determination that that one would be exempt from the regular sign code provisions because of its function. Any
Thank you.
further questions?
So you can confirm that one is not an LED sign, is that accurate?
Yes, none of them are programmable or changeable message signs. There was something else. Applicant would be agreeable if you want to impose a restriction to this. County code is silent as far as changeable message signs. If you would want to make that, put a restriction in the granting of the variance that they're agreeing to not have electronic changeable message signs on the property, they are agreeable to that.
Thank you for your comments. At this point, we'll bring it back to the commission. Do we have any further discussion on this case? Mr. Blick.
I'm kind of conflicted on this because I see the need for a sign. I don't see the need for 2 signs. The one sign that's down on 145th and Central, the backdrop of it is just a row of trees and you can't even see the building. I don't really see that sign that's down there that was approved is beneficial compared to the one that's on Sharon Lane. But at the same.
That's the opposite of what's going on.
Correct. So I don't see the point of having a second sign. I do like the sign that's here on Sharon Lane, but I don't like the sign that's just out on the corner that you can't even see the property line. I know it's just opposite. They already got approved for the one. But I think it's not really beneficial to have a second sign on this property line.
Any other, yes, Mr. Warren.
I'm going to take an opposite view of that. I find the need for both signs based on the traffic that goes into this area and directing people to the school. It's necessary. I also find as I read the criteria that I find myself in agreement with the applicant's assessment of the need for these, and so I find that they are in line with the criteria, with their request, and I would add, so I'm gonna make a motion to approve the variance and add the stipulation that any reader boards or would disallow any changeable signs or any readable signs as a part of that.
Second.
Yes, Scott?
Sorry, just a quick staff clarification question, and that is, as part of the motion, you find that the 5 criteria have been met, is that right?
That is correct.
May I have another clarification on
Yes.
behalf of staff? So no, thank you, no changeable copy. You probably, I'm assuming we were talking about LEDs, EMCs, but would you also include mechanically changeable copies as well?
Yes, I would.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Let's try a voice vote. Yes.
I'm gonna support the motion. I mean, we're dealing with a 25-acre lot, limited, so that the county's sign regulation that, but I see the need for this, so I'm gonna support the motion.
Mr. McKay.
JR, this comment you just made, what if the facility is no longer Phillips Fundamental Learning Center and becomes George's? With what you said, then they couldn't even change the sign, is that what you're saying to me?
No, sir, it'd be a sign that would have changeable copies. So reader boards, portable signs like that, put on letters, or an electronic LED sign would be the same thing.
That was why I wanted clarification, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign.
Aye.
No. Aye.
Okay. We have it, what is it, 11 to 1?
10 to 2.
11 to 2, okay. Motion carries. Thank you. Appreciate your time. Okay, that concludes the BZA. Reconvene the Planning Commission. First case we've got to hear is subdivision 2.2. It's one-step final plan in Ballman 4th Edition, formerly known as Ballman Edition, located a half-mile south of West Pawnee Avenue on the east side of South Mays Road.
Neil Stroh, planning staff. The Ballman 4th Edition on the east side of South Mays, half mile south of Pawnee. This plat consists of 73 lots, zoned single-family residential. If we can go to the final plat, please. This one-step final plat is the north portion of a sketch plat that was previously approved in June, which encompassed 215 lots on 76 acres. If we can go back to the sketch plat, please. At that sketch plat review in June, the developer stated that he met with the HOA to the north and had an agreement with them to minimize traffic and limit the north portion of the site to SF5 single-family residential zoning instead of the TF3 duplex zoning proposed for the remainder of the site on the south portion. Also, to limit traffic to Yosemite from only the east portion of the site. The subdivision committee approved the sketch plat with 2 access points for the single-family development, one opening along Mays Road right here, and one to the north along Yosemite, extending to Yosemite at this point right here. Fire apparatus access roads would be needed between the proposed duplex development to the south and between the 2 single-family developments to the north. Again, that was what was approved for the sketch plat. 1 week after the sketch plat review, this body approved a zone change to TF3, 2-family residential, for the south portion of the site, which is not included in this one-step final plat. If we could go to the one-step final plat. The plat denotes 1 street opening along Mays, 1 opening along Yosemite. There's also a fire apparatus access road and pedestrian easement located in reserve right here between the 2 cul-de-sacs. This access is in accordance with the sketch plat approval. It also meets city fire code standards for 2 points of access for a plat over 30 units. Traffic engineering also requested landscaping to be used within this reserve. That would be to screen the vision of drivers at that cul-de-sac connection. The developer informed the subdivision committee that he was proposing a removable reflective panel at that cul-de-sac location, at that cul-de-sac connection. For city fire, there would be 2 pedestrian openings on each side and landscaping outside of that buffer. The plat was approved by the subdivision committee with the condition that the applicant and city fire coordinate regarding the specific type and design of that fire apparatus access at this location between the 2 cul-de-sacs. The vote was 4-2, and one of the subdivision members in opposition stated he felt the issues regarding the type of connection would not have come up if those 2 streets were connected with a public right-of-way. At the Planning Commission meeting 2 weeks ago, the plat was deferred at the request of the agent since the developer was unable to attend. After that MAPC deferral, 2 neighbors contacted me who live north of the plat in the Park Addition. Both had concerns regarding traffic. One neighbor explained that the HOA is in favor of the plat, as was approved by the subdivision committee, because they would be against any public right-of-way connection between the 2 cul-de-sacs, which would increase traffic extending to their subdivision to the north. Also, it would pose a conflict with a bus stop. They told me was located at the Yosemite-Rainier intersection in this vicinity to the north. Again, so the HOA was fine with the fire apparatus access road connection between the 2 cul-de-sacs as shown on the plat. However, another neighbor opposed the plat as he lived directly opposite the easternmost connection onto Yosemite, which was shown on the sketch plat. 2 weeks ago, I was informed by City Fire the developer had contacted them to allow swinging gates for that fire apparatus road connection at this point. We do have staff in attendance today. We did have city staff. Believe that City Fire is online if you have any questions. Oh, I'm sorry, City Traffic is here.
Okay, back to the commission. Do we have any questions of staff? Yes, Mr. Hartman.
Yeah, Neil, does this plat meet all the requirements of the subdivision regulations?
Yes, it does. I don't believe there was, let me double check, see if there's any waivers. It looks like we did have one waiver. The waiver was just for a lot width to depth ratio on a couple of the lots.
Thank you.
Mr. Aldridge.
Yeah, Neil, do you know whether or not City Fire and the applicant has reached agreements?
I do not know.
Thank you.
And Neil, can you remind us the number of units in each of the sections, the number of housing units in each of the sections and what the requirement is for the, over the requirement it is that requires it to have the two exits? Anything over
Okay.
30 units, and how
Yes.
many units are there? I'm
Yes,
sorry.
anything over 30 units requires 2 points of access. There is 73 lots zoned single family, so that'd be 73 units on this plat.
It doesn't have to be a full access, just that there is a second point even when it's almost double what?
Correct.
Any other questions of staff at this point? If not, thank you, Neil. We will now call on the agent or applicant. You have 10 minutes. Please give us your name and address for the record.
Phil Meyer with Baughman Company, agent for the applicant. The applicant, Jay Russell, is here with me today. If you have specific questions for Jay, both Mike Armour and Chief O'Cades were here at the beginning of the meeting. I know that Chief O'Cades is online now. Mike's got Lee Carmichael bitch hitting for him in the back of the room there if you have questions for fire or traffic. We've been working both with the fire department and the traffic department. They're both in agreement with the plat that we are presenting to you today. We are still in the process of working with Chief O'Cades on the final details of the gate, but they, I believe, fire does want a gate on that, and we're good with that. We're going to meet their conditions. What those final conditions are, I don't know that either side can tell you today, but we're 80% there, so we will get that wrapped up. As we go through the design engineering, we're still working with Mike Armour on some things we could do traffic-wise to just make the two cul-de-sacs and the connection between there easily identified for people going through, that there is a pedestrian connection that's going to happen. He's asked for some landscaping on the side and things like that, and we're just going to keep working with him as we go through the design process to do that. So we would like to ask you to approve this plat as presented in front of you today, that the way we have designed it, one in front of you. We will have another street here at a later date. We do meet the subdivision and access management policy on the separation of those streets, and I can go into more detail on that later. I'm going to stop at that point and answer any questions you may have. Or
Okay, from the commission, is there anyone that has any questions of the applicant at this point?
So the one last thing I do need to point out or remind everybody, we've told you, before we ever did the zoning to the south, Jay met with the HOA and the homeowners association up here. One of the things they didn't want in their design of this was traffic coming up Maze Road, jumping over and cutting through to Yosemite. So part of the reason this thing is designed like this is part of the agreement he made with them when we went through that process. I know that doesn't bind planning commission, but he feels obligated to at least fight for this because he promised the HOA that.
Thank you for your comments. This time, is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this case? Please go to the podium. You've got 3 minutes. State your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Mickey Thole. My address is 133 North Ashley Park Court, Wichita, Kansas 67212. I am aware of this area. It actually, the present neighborhood north of Yosemite is very similar to the area I live in. I'm here to, I gave away too many keys. I'm here to make a few comments related to the plat, and I understand that the plat being discussed today is the single-family development area plat, but I believe that there are comments that will need to be addressed with this plat affecting the one future plat to the south of it. So what you'll see on this plat, as you see way at the far east end of it, there is a future entrance area there for the future platting of the streets to the south and the development south of this plat. I'm suggesting, and the pictures in front of you show, a possibility of moving the east cul-de-sac, the proposed single-family development, to the east line of the property. That is where this future entrance would be shown. This would eliminate the future access point to the proposed two-family development area. The entrance to both the single-family and future two-family or expanded single-family area could be made a split drive entrance with 1 lane in and 2 lanes out, separated by a development identification wall and beautification. This is what's done usually in some of the higher development, fancier development areas. The approximate 58 lots shown in the east area of the two-family lots, this is the future development south, could be revised to approximately 86 or so single-family lots. This change would better mirror the existing residential area to the north of Yosemite Drive and encourage higher-priced single-family homes around the proposed retention pond and the lots backing up to the tree line on the east edge of that development. If the changes noted in number 3 above were made, then the proposed single-family area accessed from Maze Road could be revised to two-family developments. I make that statement, however, I recognize that Jay and the neighborhood really want that single-family buffer between the existing area and the future two-family areas. An emergency access point could be planned south of what is now shown as lots 12 and 13 in the east development area, and lots 18 and whatever it is in the west development area. Again, this is the area south of the proposed plat. It's the future two-family areas. The changes would prevent through traffic from Maze Road to Yosemite, and Jay and I talked just briefly outside, and I agree with him. I agree with the comments made that nobody wants access to connect from Maze over to Yosemite and then over to Tyler. Nobody wants that.
Sir,
These changes.
your time is up.
Okay, thank you.
I have a quick question. Sir, where exactly do you live?
I live
in relationship to this plat?
I live north of Maple and west of Ridge Road. I know I'm good friends with people that live in this area, so I'm in this area a lot. I actually tried to purchase a piece of property that just recently sold on Yellowstone, just off of Yosemite, literally really close.
Okay,
to
so you
us.
don't reside around this area at all then?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak on this as present? Please go to the podium, state your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Grant Delmar. I live at 9606 West Yosemite Drive. I am the resident that lives right across from the future exit to the far east there. And the way that the developer has this all laid out right now, I don't really have a big problem or any problem with what he's got proposed here, keeping that traffic down. My issue I have is we need to look out into the future here a little bit. That's what I'm asking you all to look at. I've lived at the address for 28 years. We have thousands of cars coming down Yosemite in and out right now. That's before this additional traffic, some of it comes to dump out. A great percentage of this next phase he's going to do right across the street from my driveway. If I need to get out of my driveway and it's rush hour in the morning the way this is proposed, I don't know how long it's going to take me to get out. I don't know what my risks of an accident coming out of there with my kids and myself, my wife. The proposal that Mr. Thole presented would move this eastern cul-de-sac down and defer all that traffic back over in across from, I believe it was Rainier, eliminating all of this traffic from this future area that is going to dump in. Not to mention the traffic. I mean, we're going to have enough traffic coming out of these two cul-de-sacs that's coming in this phase that you guys are looking at. But I don't know, maybe it'll slow some of these cars down that are coming in and out of there at the speed that they come in. You guys are welcome to check with the city. I've had the police department out numerous times running their boxes to give them a count on traffic. It's in the thousands, you guys, in the thousands per week in there. So I'm asking you to strongly consider not approving this the way that it is, only because I want things bumped down to where I don't have to be concerned every time I try to pull out of my driveway, which is already a concern the way that it is, with traffic flying by there at 50, 60, 70 miles an hour sometimes in a 30-mile-an-hour school or residential zone. We also have all kinds of wildlife crossing in through there, so I'm just asking for you guys to please consider at least making a little change here on this, where it's simply bumping a cul-de-sac. Mr. Russell's not going to lose any lots, I don't think, from what Mr. Thole had looked at and proposed on this. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else from the public present that would like to speak on this? Please go to the podium and give us your name and address. You'll have 3 minutes.
I'm Bob Copeland. I live at 2514 Yellowstone. I have a couple of questions. I'm going to get to them briefly. First of all, when Russell does this development, is there going to be an access road for the dump trucks and concrete trucks and framing trucks to do this site, or is it going to also come down from Mays and Yosemite and through the neighborhood, the big trucks? Or is there going to be a service road to build these homes? I would like to know that. Are we going to have a lot of big trucks going through the neighborhood? Also, in spite of that, does the access to Yosemite, what's the minimum requirement that would make it accessible for the homeowners to be able to come and go? Do they really need to have that much access to a neighborhood street that's been there for years called Yosemite? Right now, they're taking shortcuts from Mays and Pawnee to get over to Tyler to the airport area by turning there and coming down. You said people that don't even live there do that. So now you're adding 73 family households that's going to try to make access using the neighborhood. Also, when there's school buses there and kids and everything else. And when they're coming down, when traffic comes down Yosemite from Tyler, there's a little bridge there and a curve. And right before they get to Grants, there's some cars that are really flying. So I'm going to say this right now. Were you planning on doing this at? There's probably going to be an accident or two, unless you got some way to prevent it because of that. The swing gates you're talking about, what is that? What are they going to be? Are they going to be cattle gates, or are they going to be wrought iron gates? Are they going to be attractive? Are they going to be locked? And is it just for the fire department? That one I didn't hear of until just now. When they say they talk to the HOA, I guess I missed those meetings. In this development, is it going to be investment properties for sale, for rentals, or is it going to be for private dwellings? I'd kind of like to know that for my own sake. I'm a real estate investor. You see, I don't have to stay in this neighborhood. I can move. I do that. This is what I do. Haven't done much since COVID, but anyways, I'm just saying if I was going to be a long-term resident there, I would have some really big concerns about it. And I hope that Russell, which I'm sure he probably will put in some strong covenants and restrictions to the people he sells to. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else from the public present that would like to speak on this case? Seeing none, is there anyone on virtually that would like to speak on this case? If not, I will bring it back to the agent or applicant, and you'll have 2 minutes for rebuttal.
My name is Jay Russell, 2738 North Curtis. Can I have the previous drawing that shows the original sketch plat? I want to answer a couple of the questions, though. It is all single family in this. We met in January and February and March, 3 different meetings that I met with the HOA. There was probably a total of 20 different people that showed up to those meetings. And I went directly to the HOA president and I said, invite whoever you want. In all of those meetings, that was the design that we agreed to. And their basic concern was to keep as much traffic off of Yosemite as possible. We made an agreement with them that first cul-de-sac off of Mays Road, which I guess is here, is that it would just be a cul-de-sac to the maximum 800-foot length that we can go. But after the sketch plat, Planning Department requested that we create some kind of an access point so that people from the west can travel down through here by foot or bicycles and be able to get through here so that they can get on down this way that would allow them to get to the park, etc., that is to the east of this area. So if I could go back to the next drawing. We came up with this design that allowed this access point. They call it a fire apparatus access road. And hopefully we can hear from Chief O'Cades about that. And I'd like to see if Lee Carmichael will also speak about it. What it does is it still keeps the traffic limited to this area right through here. People can't come down Mays Road and turn through here and go all the way down and circle back through here. It would, in our opinion, to become a racetrack. So after subdivision, it was approved 4-2. We
Sir,
had,
your time's up. Could you wrap it up in another minute?
we'll see.
Okay.
We'll see. Anyway, I've had conversations with Chief O'Cades, and he has requested, instead of removable panels, that I go with swing gates. We've agreed to that. We've agreed to put a 4-foot access to the outside of his 20-foot area that he needs. I've had conversations with traffic engineering, and they've given me directions on what they want. So I hope I answered all of the spectators' questions, and hopefully Lee and Chief O'Cades can weigh in on this subject.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the commission. Do you have any questions of the applicant or any comments? Mr. McKay.
I'd like to hear from the people he was talking about, the officials that he's been working with, fire department and traffic.
Can we get them on board?
I'd just like to hear from, they're the professionals.
Okay. We have the traffic department coming up here now.
This is Chief O'Cades. I'll speak after Lee Carmichael from engineering.
Yeah, I'm Lee Carmichael. I'm the Assistant Traffic Engineer, City of Wichita, 455 North Main. We're in agreement with staff comments. The biggest thing is that this will promote quality of life and safety, to not make it a through lane and have these cul-de-sacs on here. And when I stated, or when the statement that we wanted to block the vision of the drivers, that's sort of a misleading statement, because you don't want to ever block vision when you're driving. But when you drive down the street, you want to have something, a barricade or a border or something to have it visually know that the road is coming to an end and it's time to turn around and go back or what have you. So that's what we asked for, landscaping between the two roundabouts, and for Chief O'Cades, yeah, to put a gate in for the fire apparatus road. I'll stand for any questions you might have.
Do you have any questions of the speaker? Not, thank you. We're going to hear from the fire department now. Oh, excuse me.
Do you have concern where the exit onto Yosemite hits, like the speed of the traffic there, the quantity of traffic that's already there, that shifting it one direction or the other would be helpful from a traffic standpoint on Yosemite?
I do not. It'll actually slow vehicles down, because you're right there at the curve of Yosemite. So they'll curve in and slow down, and so the speed should be.
So the curve serves as a traffic calmer for that location?
Yes, and all through Yosemite, they got enough curvature in there to create a speed reduction. So,
Mr. Hartman,
do you know how much traffic comes down Yosemite? Because, you know, from Tyler, that's a direct route all the way over to Mays Road, and it's nonstop.
I do not. Gentleman said there was 1,000, and I would believe it. Thousands, yeah.
okay, well, thank you. Now we have a representative of the fire department online to speak.
Yes, sir. Jose O'Cades, Battalion Chief, Wichita Fire Department. We have been in discussion with Mr. Russell regarding the requirements of a swinging gate with those two cul-de-sacs meeting, but in ends, basically it's just the minimum requirement of our 20-foot width requirements from the fire code. I also would like to add on to a couple questions or comments that were made in understanding of the 30 dwellings and the requirement of 2 fire apparatus access roads. The intent of the fire code is for us fire trucks and emergency service to be able to gain access inside of these subdivisions in case of a natural disaster, i.e. Kansas tornadoes, but also it's for the residents of those subdivisions to have free access to exit in case of those emergencies, rather than being bottlenecked on one main entrance or exit out of those subdivisions. So we'll continue to work with Mr. Russell, and I hope that I was able to clarify and answer some questions from the speakers and commissioners.
We have any questions of this, or comments of the speaker from the commission? If not, thank you, sir, for your comments. At this point, I'll bring it back to the commission for discussion. Mr. Hartman.
Yes, I have no problem with the plat the way it's shown today. I do have a problem with the sketch plat with the exits coming out there on the very east end. I think this thing can be redesigned to where the entire development to the south can all go out to Mays Road and then eliminate all that extra traffic coming on to Yosemite. And I know Yosemite is a direct street from Mays all the way over to Tyler, and it gets a lot of traffic, and I don't think it needs to be any more added to it than what we already see now.
Yes, Ms. Foster.
I know I've been butting heads on connectivity for a while. For the visitors here, members of the public who are concerned about traffic, understand sometimes it's a little hard from my perspective to be too sympathetic, because if you get on Google Maps or look at a plat map and follow the pattern of the streets in a cul-de-sac subdivision, all the cul-de-sacs and every house on every cul-de-sac, all the traffic is designed to filter down into one or two collector streets, which then funnel all the traffic from the whole subdivision down to one or two intersections onto an arterial. Of course, you're going to have horrible traffic and horrible traffic jams at those points. They're designed to create that situation. So every time we get one of these plats, it's extremely frustrating to me, because each little plat pushes as far as it can against the regulations to get as close as it can to being as little connectivity as possible. But they are legal, they meet the regulations, so we end up approving them, and the pattern keeps growing and growing. I just wish developers, and it's not just Mr. Russell, though he does seem to be one of the more determined people here, I wish they would put as much effort into connectivity and thinking about its advantages as they put into trying to push the regs to see how close they can get to only one point of entrance for a whole development.
Mr. Aldridge.
Again, following up on what I've said during the subdivision meetings, is that the agent, the applicant, has been working with fire. They've been working with traffic to get any issues that they've may have worked out. They're doing that, and I still support what the subdivision approval on this, and that's all I got to say for right now.
Mr. McKay.
Ms. Foster, I hate to take, not sides against you, but I think what you just said is personal opinion and personal opinion only. Being in this business for over 60 years, we don't try to push it as far as we can. We try to do what's best for the neighborhood, because it's the money market that we're trying to sell with these houses. So the best thing we can do to help these people is to make it safe for the neighborhood. If you're out among the people all the time and do what the developers do, they try to market based upon what the public wants, not what I want, not what you want, or anybody else. So I feel at this time that what you just said was, like I said, is a personal opinion. And I think that it's amazing to me that with the subdivision, it was 4-2. We've heard from the traffic, we've heard from the fire department, and everything that the city has said to do, they've done. Why the two people vote against it is their own personal opinion. But I think it's really kind of sad that instead of trying to work with the development community to throw roadblocks in front of their way to help, to keep them from making the city grow.
Yes, Ms. Foster.
Well, I would just say that all of us here on this board are here to represent the community at large with our personal opinions up to a point. We have to make those personal opinions based on what the regulations are. Having said that, marketing, I've said this before, people use the excuse of it's what the public wants, but marketing, advertisements, guide and shape what the public wants. I perhaps am putting too much credit on the fact that I used to live in Florida, where developers do what the public wants and they build gigantic condominiums, high-rises on barrier islands that are basically sandbars. And until there's a hurricane, they're very desirable properties and the market really wants them. That doesn't mean there's smart planning. And I don't think what we have seen here as a pattern of cul-de-sac development is smart planning even though, yes, the market wants it because the market's been trained to want it. Having said that, I will probably vote against this. I will probably be on the losing side. It's been the pattern on this development. But I think we do need to, as a board, start remembering that, yes, we're supposed to work with the developers, but we're also supposed to speak for the community at large and the long-term future of the community and the pattern of development that will serve the long-term future of the community.
I'd like to make a personal comment quickly. I will support this motion, and we lived for 30 years in a community that had one entrance to it. There's 120 lots in there, and for the first 20 years, there wasn't any problem. They finally petitioned to put a stoplight on 21st Street, but it works. That's just my comments. Yes, Mr. Warren.
I would move to approve the request as presented and according to staff comment.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Then we'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 No? No.
Motion passes. Now we will move on. My records indicate right. We are going to hear case number 4.2. Is that what your records show? Okay, 4.2. We'll hear staff comments.
Good afternoon, Planning Commission, Philip Zievenberg, and for the record, Con 2343 is a request for a conditional use for vehicle and equipment sales outdoors on a property zone limited commercial located at 1305 North Hillside, which is located on the northwest corner of North Hillside and East 12th Street. The size is about 1/3 of an acre, and it is currently developed with a vacant parking lot. There used to be a freestanding fast food establishment. That structure has been demolished as well as the sign. The applicant intends to construct a 32 by 32 foot building, which is about 1,024 square feet, which will serve as the office for the vehicle and equipment sales lot if this is approved. The applicant's site plan, if you want to move to that, Paul, illustrates 6 parking spaces for customers and approximately 10 to 15 cars for display. Staff is recommending, if this is approved, that a revised site plan be provided that better illustrates where the display cars are as well as the employee and customer parking. They've got some of it outlined here, but just kind of based on the nature of it, it's just not very clear to that. It's hard to, based on the size of the building and the size of the lot, they likely have sufficient parking based on the regulations of the code. But again, if it's approved, a revised site plan would clear all of that up. Outdoor vehicle sales is subject to supplementary use regulations found in section 3D6X of the Unified Zoning Code when it's in limited commercial zoning. Those are listed in your staff report. A brief review of those. This is contiguous to an arterial street, so it meets number 1. They would have to provide screening per the applicable code, which would be a screening fence to the west. The property is currently secured with safety bollards and a chain link fence. If it's approved, they would have to upgrade the chain link fence to solid screening. The property is paved. They would have to comply with lighting standards. If they provide any lighting, they have to comply with noise regulations. They would comply with the regulation that any repair work has to be done within an enclosed building. They would have to comply with the sign code regulation for the LC district. And they would have to comply with the fact that they would not be allowed to have any elevated platforms for display. Go to the zoning map, please. The character of the neighborhood surrounding it is mostly residential, despite Hillside being an arterial. You do have commercial zoning to the north, but it's developed with a single-family dwelling. Property to the south, across 12th Street, is B multifamily, is developed with a parking lot. Properties to the east across Hillside are zoned general commercial and B multifamily and are vacant. The GC is vacant and the B is developed with a single family dwelling. Property to the west across what looks like a platted alley is zoned TF3 and developed with single family dwellings. There are no zoning cases associated with the site. Has access to the North Hillside, which is a paved 4-lane arterial with sidewalks on both sides. East 12th Street is a paved local street with no sidewalks. Wichita Transit does provide service in the area and they have access to all municipal services. Regarding conformance to plans, if you go to the land use map, it is in conformance with the future land use map, which identifies the property appropriate for commercial uses. However, when we dig deeper for locational guidelines, general development pattern guidelines, they're not in conformance with. That encourages major commercial and employment centers to be located at the intersection of arterial streets. Though Hillside is an arterial, 12th is a local road that provides access to a neighborhood. Land use compatibility is not in conformance with either. These guidelines discourage higher intensity development from locating in areas of existing lower intensity development, particularly low density residential areas, which is what this site backs up to the west, and there's a single family home to the north. It is not in conformance with the Wichita Places for People plan. Specifically, strategy 6 encourages infill development to be contextual to the environment. The context is primarily residential, and this would be introducing a new use into the area. Though it is an area of opportunity, which would encourage public and private investment to help revitalize the area, the proposed use is auto-oriented and does not promote walkable places and facilities in the area. And finally, the Central Northeast Area Plan update has priorities. One of them encourages more neighborhood-serving retail and personal services. And the requested vehicle sales does not fit that description. It's not necessarily neighborhood serving or personal service. If you marry all those together, there could be appropriate commercial uses giving the limited commercial zoning that would fit the bill for all three of these plans that would be more neighborhood serving or for personal services. Ultimately, staff is recommending denial based on the findings in your staff report, specifically number 3, it could introduce light pollution and negative visual impacts to the residential uses. It is not in conformance with all aspects of our adopted plans and policies. Staff has not received any comment from the neighborhood at the time of publication of the staff report. Should the Planning Commission recommend approval of this, staff has provided recommended conditions of approval that are pretty standard. There's not any in there that are usually out of the ordinary when it comes to vehicle and equipment sales. We require a revised site plan to indicate sufficient parking, and the other ones are pretty standard. It would have to, comply with the site plan and all other permits and regulations on the site. For the sake of time, I will not go over those unless there's any specific questions. We can jump to the site photos. This is looking north at the site. You can see the chain link fence does have fabric over it that does not satisfy solid screening requirement per the zoning code. Next picture. This is looking south towards a property that's B multifamily, but is a parking lot. You can see a home just south of that. Next picture. This is looking west toward the site. And you can see the single family homes that are directly behind it. Next picture. It's looking east. This is the GC zone property that's vacant. To the south of that is a single family residence at 12th and Hillside. Next picture. And I can stand for any comments you have or questions.
Any questions of staff on this case? Yes,
I just
Mr.
had a
Blick.
quick question for staff on screening with outdoor automotive storage or vehicle sales. I know a lot of car dealers will put those low bars like a gate. Can they also put a fence on top of that, or can they only do the bar gates and stuff out front?
I guess can you clarify? Oh, out front.
Yes.
They would need to provide barriers to ensure that any display cars do not encroach into public right of way or over the sidewalk. They are not required to provide screening along Hillside or 12th.
Okay. I just seen we approved a couple of them last year, and now they have a fence, plus they have the bars, so that's why I was wondering.
I guess nothing would stop them from putting in the bar as well.
Any other questions of staff at this point? Is the agent or applicant present? You have 10 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Hadi. I'm the owner of 1305. I'm trying to purchase the car sale lot so I can make sales and I can make more money on the property. If you have any other questions, just let me know.
Does anyone on the commission have questions of the applicant?
What do you do on the property right now? Are you doing car sales right now?
I'm waiting to get approval from you guys to start do what I want to do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more question?
You will have a chance for rebuttal if we have any more comments from the public. Is there anyone else present that would like to comment on this case? Is there anyone virtually that would like to comment on this case? With that, I'll bring it back to the commission. Thank you, sir. That's all.
I move we approve subject to the staff comments.
Clarification, staff recommendation is denial.
Yeah. All right. That's kind of what I was getting to.
So your recommendation is to deny?
What the staff
Your motion is to deny?
for
Okay.
for denial.
I second that.
Motion to deny. We have a second? Okay. We have a motion and a second to deny this application. Yes, Mr. Warren.
A question, it was, there any comments from the community that I missed on this?
Not that I'm aware of. Christina Reith is the case planner on this, and the item number 8 in the findings indicated, at least by the publication of the staff report, there had been none.
Okay, how far out did the notification go for?
The notification for a site 1 acre and below is 200 feet in all directions.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second to deny. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Nay.
I think we're close. We could have the folks who voted nay raise their hands, please. 1, 2, 3, Okay, thank you very much. Joe Johnson, Bill Johnson, and Mr. Warren.
The motion passes. Moving on.
Mr. Chair, if I could, the next item, which is item 4.7, Zone 2349, I had a conversation with folks who I believe indicated they wanted the public comment. I do not see them in the room anymore. I don't know if we want to just double check, because I don't believe anybody on the commission wanted to hear this item. Maybe it'd be worth double checking to see if this item needs to be heard.
So is there anyone present who wants to hear the zoning case CON 2023-00049, which is a zone change request in the county for LC Limited Commercial District to allow for future development, generally located at southeast corner of Southeast Drive and East 160th Street. Is there anyone present who wants to comment on that? Is there anyone virtually that wants to comment on that? If nobody wants to comment on it, then I think
Chairman,
we
motion
will
to
just
approve
take a vote on it.
4.7.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next case is Zone 2023-00050.
Good afternoon. My name is Brad Etherly, Senior Planner for the department, and we are actually going through two cases today. One is Zone 2023-00050. The other is CON 2023-00047. The request before us today is to change the zoning from GO General Office District to LC Limited Commercial District with that conditional use request for a mobile food unit in the city. In other words, a food truck. The property is 0.14 acres and it is located on the west side of North Hillside Avenue and within 275 feet south of East 2nd Street North. The address is 233 North Hillside Avenue. The applicant is requesting two items. The first, a zone change from GO General Office District to LC Limited Commercial District. And number two, a conditional use to permit a mobile food unit in the city. The subject site is a 0.14 acre property generally located on the west side of North Hillside Avenue. It is currently zoned GO General Office. The LC Limited Commercial District permits mobile food units in the city as a conditional use, subject to the supplementary use regulations. Those supplementary use regulations are attached to your agenda report. The requested zone change from GO General Office District to LC Limited Commercial District would permit the applicant the conditional use for the entirety of their property. The applicant is also requesting the conditional use as a principal use on the property in conjunction with the applicant's plans to utilize the existing building as a restaurant. Both the restaurant and the food truck will be considered principal uses on the property. Can you go to the site plan? Just wanted to point out here this little rectangle, which is where the applicant has proposed the food truck will be permanently situated on the property. If approved, the conditional use would permit the food truck to be placed on the property at all times, provided that the space on which the food truck is placed does not take up any required off-street parking spaces for the restaurant. The applicant's proposed site plan shows that the food truck will be positioned in the northeast corner of the subject site. I want to speak regarding, if you can go to the aerial view. So this parking lot to the south plays into this request. This parking lot is owned by the owner of the subject site and then the three sites to the north. They equally share 1/4 of the parking lot. There are 24 spaces, so each owner is given 6 spaces to work with. That includes the 5 spaces that are out in front of his property, the building. So that would come to a total of 11 spaces that he has access to. This allows the applicant to utilize the spaces for his restaurant, which would come to, the applicant is proposing 20 seats, which will require 7 parking stalls. There is no parking requirement for the mobile food truck. If you can go to the zoning map. Paul, can you go to the zoning map? You can see that this property is in a corridor of mostly commercial properties along Hillside Avenue. North Hillside Avenue is a paved 5-lane arterial street developed with a center turning lane. Sidewalks are located on the east and west sides of North Hillside Avenue, and Wichita Transit does serve the site at East Douglas Avenue and North Hillside Avenue. If you can go to the growth policy map, please. The request is in conformance with the community investments plan. The plan recommends the subject site is appropriate for new residential, which is appropriate for commercial uses based upon market-driven location factors. The property historically has been zoned commercially and is located along an arterial street. The request is in conformance with the land use compatibility locational guidelines of the comprehensive plan as well. Additionally, it recommends that neighborhoods serving retail and office uses, if the scale of the development is appropriate for the context. The staff does not anticipate a zone change to LC and the uses permitted in the LC to have significant adverse impacts to surrounding properties. The request is also in conformance with the Wichita Places for People plan. A restaurant and a food truck placed on the subject site will not impair the goals stated within the plan. Additionally, the proposed request conforms to the Central Northeast Area Plan. Priorities outlined in the Central Northeast Area Plan include those which encourage more neighborhood serving retail and personal services in the area and retain existing businesses and create new businesses and employment opportunities that will benefit area residents. Staff did receive a phone call and then additionally an email from one citizen who had concerns about parking and site access and throughness. We also received another email from a neighbor that was concerned about property values. Those should be in front of you as well. Planning staff does recommend that the requests be approved subject to the conditions outlined in the agenda report, and I can stand for any questions.
Yes, Mr. Aldridge.
If the applicant wished to put a trailer there, would that be allowed?
It would have to be a food truck, a mobile food unit, whatever the definition of the mobile food unit would be.
So I think you're splitting hairs, basically. Would it, anyway, doing this, if this is approved, would that have any negative impact or on their parking requirements, or there wouldn't, or this wouldn't be enough to even?
Specifically concerning the mobile food unit, there is no parking requirements for that. Now, if they have the restaurant as well, they would be required to have 7 parking spaces. Considering that they have 5 out in front of the building, plus the 6 to the parking lot to the south, they've got more than enough to meet that responsibility or requirement. Other than that, the mobile food unit is not in question.
Okay, so if this is gonna be a permanent fixture, why don't they just add on to the building instead of just, you know, because it's no longer gonna be mobile,
Yeah,
correct?
that would have to be a question for the applicant.
Yes, Joe.
I have a question. Who owns the other two buildings?
Well, there are actually 3 buildings, it seems, and they're under separate ownership. I do not know, I believe one of them is here today, but I do not know the ownership of the other 2 buildings.
Because I assume what a concern about parking would be is that when the food truck business is thriving, all the parking spaces in front of the buildings would get used up.
I believe that's the concern of one of the other owners.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is
Mr.
station,
Blick,
is
yeah.
station number 5 still active? That's north of there? It is? Okay, thanks.
I will state, I do have site photos. I forgot to do them. This is my first time. So if we want to go through the site photos, I'm more than welcome to do that. If you can go to the site photos, please. Thank you very much. I was nervous 3 hours ago, but now I'm not. So this is viewing from the south boundary of that parking lot where all 4 owners own, and it's looking north into what used to be a dental office and is being proposed as the restaurant. If you can go to the next one. This is looking south away from the building into that parking lot. You can see those curb stops there. That's going into another property. This is looking east away from the property onto Hillside. You can see that there's what that is a yard for a vet clinic across the street. Next photo. This is a picture of the property looking from Hillside, looking west. You can see the other building there. Okay, next slide. And this is a little bit further back in front of some of those other buildings. You can see the sign to the left and the access entry there just behind that truck that's on Hillside. The purpose of this photo is to show that, you know, the truck would be kind of sitting in this location right here where my mouse is. Next photo. Okay, so if there are any other questions at this point, I can take them.
So, thank you.
So there's
Good
no
job.
requirement for setback from the property line?
As long as it's on the property, it's fine.
Really?
And not taking up any spaces for,
That's
that are
because-
required for the restaurant.
That's because it's portable?
I would assume so, yes.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll call the agent and applicant or applicant. You have 10 minutes. Please state your name and address. Do we have one?
Oh, hi, my name is Tuan Nguyen. I believe that transforming this traffic zone into the limited commercial zone so that can create a vibration hub that for the social interaction, for economic growth. I want to open like a coffee shop, but they're selling more like they call noon cafe, more like coffee shop. They sell a little bit sandwich in there. I have identified a specific location within the existing traffic zone for that I believe I would be a deal for the venture. However, in order to protect my plan, I kindly request for changing the zone from office zone to the LC commercial. My vision for this coffee shop is create a welcome space that cater for need students as well as the surrounding College Hill neighborhood and a Wesley Hospital visitor that I believe by providing a comfortable and environment along with the range of delicious offering, we can attract diverse customer based on make it a real more attractive resident and visitor alike. And I believe I can create a thriving coffee shop that not only benefit the community, but also contribute to overall growth and development for our city. Thank you very much for consideration.
Do we have any questions of the applicant? Yes, Mr. Blick.
Question on the food truck portion of it. You're wanting to put the food truck out there by closer to the hillside street, is that right?
The food truck?
Yes.
The food truck, yeah, the food truck, it's more like, the new concept, like a snow cone, the food
Okay.
truck snow cone. It's more attractive to young kid coming in for more. We open up more in the evening than daytime, probably after school hour in the summertime only.
And you're looking at putting it right there along that sidewalk, right?
Yeah,
Okay, so my concern is the window where you're gonna sell out of that food truck, are you gonna put it on the sidewalk side or the driveway side?
the window will be on the sideway.
Okay,
And the side, like the banner, I can say the banner or the side, on the side, so when the people driving by, they see the snow cone, something
Okay.
like that.
so do you see concerns with people driving, going through that driveway when you have a line that's going with that food truck? So if you have a line that's going out from that window in that parking lot, and you got people trying to drive through that parking lot, do you see that that might be a concern or a problem where a kid could get hit or something go in that parking lot?
So normally the snow cone, they have two windows for you to look around.
Okay.
Yeah, you can see, I can actually, if I sit inside, I can see the car driving by the other side.
Right.
And for security, I like to have more windows to look around either.
Okay. Do you think it would be better to have the food truck on the side of the building instead of in that driveway where the parking lot, where someone
You mean on the side over here?
over on the other side, the south side?
The south side over
Yes.
here?
Yeah.
Good. We're gonna put a small patio out there, like an outdoor patio.
Okay.
And our food truck is pretty small. It's like the size is pretty small size, like 5 by 8, the small one.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions of the applicant?
So I just want to clarify, so this is a snow cone it's a snow cone truck.
A snow cone and a boba tea and coffee. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Yes, Mr. Aldridge.
Now, you're looking at using this as a permanent extension of the building that you're wanting to open up to, correct?
I'm sorry, I can't hear your question.
Okay, are you looking at, you're gonna be opening up a coffee shop or a restaurant in the building, right?
This building will
Yes.
be a coffee shop. Because the coffee shop we're selling like a little sandwich in there. I couldn't say it's the restaurant because when you say restaurant, the people are gonna dine in, right? And you have to order and the waiter to serve you are cooking. But we're more like between a coffee shop and restaurant.
Okay, but you're looking at having your snow cone as permanent fixture there, right?
Yep.
Okay, so instead of just doing a patio, why don't you just extend, if you can do that by permit, go ahead and get and extend that instead of doing this. I think this is gonna be a hazard.
I'm sorry, I'm not really clear. You understand your question?
Instead of putting,
Patio?
well, if you want to do a patio, that's fine, but why don't you just extend your building right there instead of doing a mobile unit, which isn't gonna be mobile, over there, because I think what you're looking at doing and where you're looking at putting it, I think that's gonna be hazardous.
You mean put a mobile area?
Yeah,
I would love to put the mobile somewhere like where the white car is gonna be, but, I would love to put it right here if I can. So I have more room for people to get in.
all right.
Okay, well, thank you, sir. Is there anyone from the public here that would like to speak on this? Yes, you have 3 minutes. Please state your name and address.
Last but not least, my name is Donella Abishon, and I am the owner and occupant of 241 North Hillside, directly next door to 233 North Hillside. So we have objection to this zoning, rezoning, specifically to the conditional use request for the mobile food unit. This mobile unit plans to be permanent, as he just stated. So if you can go back to the pictures, the site plan where you saw where he plans on parking it, it literally is gonna be, I don't know how many feet, 'cause I don't know how large this unit is, but it's gonna be parked right out front. My sign is right there, and I know I was here, 4 years ago going through getting the conditions for the sign, so I know that there's rules in place for that, but it's gonna be parked right next to the sign, because he plans on butting it up right to our property line, which, mind you, is less than 8 feet between our buildings and our property. The other fact is, when there's people parked where you see cars, already there's not a lot of room to pull out. So that window of backing in and out, my husband's truck, he doesn't ever get too close to my sign. I mean, it's just congested in that area. So we have objection to that. The parking lot that we're talking about it is a shared parking lot between all 4 owners. And the language on that is it's an undivided 1/4 interest. So it's not only that I get 6 spaces, it's undivided. I have ownership of the entire parking lot. All 4 of us do. And I have a real problem. I think there's gonna be a lot of traffic and congestion. I've done a little research on different food trucks, and I've attached some of that. And I meant to say, I sent all this information in ahead of time, so you all should have copies. I've got a reference page that goes through, and I looked at 4 to 5 different expectations for a food truck. So I believe that this food truck's gonna cause an issue with crowding the driveway in and out. If I've paid close attention even recently, just anticipating something be there. And if I'm pulling out of that south parking lot and I'm gonna take a left-hand turn, it's gonna be very, very difficult. And we've already seen Hillside's very busy. So I have safety concerns somebody brought up with, children and just pedestrians. I have just an issue with having food truck patrons on my property first and foremost, but just blocking the driveway. So the 4 offices do share ownership. As I stated, we've got excessive traffic and parking congestion with safety concerns, which would overflow into that parking lot, no doubt. They're just gonna overflow.
Your time's up.
Can I have another minute, please? I've waited 3 hours patiently. I promise.
Another minute.
Okay. 2 of the businesses on the premises provide healthcare services. Dr. Lee sent in his information. He gave me his letter, but he said he sent it in. I mean, he's been there for 28 years. My business has been in business 33 years. We're healthcare, optometry. Our patrons, I have doctors that come in every week, and he's got his patients come in, and he's very concerned. You can read his letter about that. Let me just make sure I got my points. I think that our objection is to the food truck. I don't have an objection to the rezoning of the building itself. It is literally to the food truck and having it parked out in, because it's gonna obstruct all of our parking, not just right in front of his building. I'm done.
Thank you, ma'am. You have a question, Mr. Aldrich?
Yes, ma'am. You just made a statement that you don't have objection to the zone change to a limited commercial. and it's general office right now. If it went to a limited commercial, would that affect your operations, your business operations at all?
I say that I don't have an objection. I really don't. If it were going to be a small restaurant and he literally is just going to have his, 10 or 11 parking places. But, I mean, quite frankly, I just prefer it stay. It's been medical for 35 years.
Well, the reason I'd say that, because the zone change, that would be for the entire property, not just,
Oh, well, then I vehemently oppose. No.
yeah, thank you.
Any other questions of our speaker? Thank you, and thank you for your patience.
You bet. I've learned a lot today.
Yeah, yes. You have 3 minutes. State your name and address for the record, please.
So, good afternoon. My name is Steve Abishon. I live at 14804 Southwest Prairie Creek Road out in Butler County. So, my relevance here today is the owner of the property. Next door is my wife. I am the handyman by default. So, a couple things I would like to point out. When you look at the requirements, this picture here, you can see the sign. So if you went 8 feet south, that's the property line. You only have roughly 30 feet from the sign to the entrance to the parking lot. I believe that the city regulations are 6 feet-ish off of the entrance to that parking lot. That leaves you 12 to 14 feet. It's a very, very small space. The other thing that my wife did not articulate, putting something permanent there, she has a big investment in her business and her sign for people. I've learned a lot about signs today, about signs directing to businesses. We have a concern that a permanent structure right there would impede the visibility of that sign. When that sign was put up, my wife worked with the fire department, with I believe it was Firehouse 5, to have the city do some tree trimming so that we'd have visibility to her sign. So I drive a pickup. It's very tough. I would tell you on any given day, you have the mail service, you have UPS, you have FedEx, and if there is ever any type of commercial work, whether it's roofing or delivery, that parking lot gets very congested. So thank you for less than 2 minutes. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments. I don't see anyone else here present from the public. Is there anyone on virtually that would like to speak on this case? If not, I'll bring it back to the applicant.
I have a question. Someone made the statement that the whole property had to be rezoned.
It would only apply to the property that the applicant owns. It does
Yeah.
not apply to the properties outside of that.
Because I think
So it does
everybody
not
heard
include
that
the parking
differently.
lot to the south. It is just the property
Just
that the
Just the building he
building is
wants to
on.
turn into a coffee house.
Correct. That would be the only place that the zoning would apply.
The reason I made that comment is because in the staff report, that says district would permit the applicant to request conditional use for the entirety of the property. So that's why I assumed it would be the entire property, not just that.
So question on that, is the parking lot to the south, since they all combine and they all use it, is that parking lot also gonna change or not?
No, the legal description they gave us and the request was only for the property that the building is on. The Geo parking lot to the south allows commercial parking areas, so there's no need to zone change that to LC for supportive parking. Parking can be allowed in Geo to support these buildings the way it is right now.
Okay, so then if we approve, just speculation, if we approve the food truck, he couldn't put it into that parking lot where he was talking about moving it to. It would actually have to stay right in front of his building.
Well, if you look at the area on the screen, it looks like there's space beside the building, between the building and the property line. If that space was adequate, I guess Brad might have a clarification on this. He could put the food truck anywhere it's LC zoned if there's space for it.
So the applicant owns this property in red, and so that would be all rezoned to LC. buildings to the north would not be, parking lot to the south would not be. As well as there are 4 parking spaces out in front of his building, plus this 5th space to the side that he owns. All the other spaces to the south are part of that jointly owned parking space.
So where he mentioned earlier, that very first spot right there, yeah, that wouldn't fall within the guidelines.
No, that would not.
Okay, thank you.
Can you point out where the entrance from Hillside is?
The entrance to the property is about right here. If you want to go to the, one of the site photos looking east,
So there's no room.
you can see it there.
In the southeast
pointing.
corner of the property for him to put the truck there? Because it would interfere with the access drive, is that
Not
correct?
in the southeast. There is a possibility. Yeah. There, if you can go back to the aerial, sorry, Paul. Yeah, there is the opportunity if he said he wanted to put a patio here, but if he wanted to put the food truck there, then he could. I don't see a place in the southeast corner for him to put the food truck.
Thank you.
Okay, at this point, we have, the applicant can come back for 2 minutes of rebuttal. Would you like to, applicant, would you like to come back and talk about what's been said? Would you like to make any comments? Would you like to make any more discussion about what was said since you made the presentation?
Yeah, if the food truck, it make the problem, so I don't mind to remove my food truck away. I don't have to go with the food truck. Yeah,
Okay. Thank you, sir.
thank you, sir.
Bring it back to the commission for any further discussion. Yes, Mr. Aldrich.
If he's not gonna, the whole purpose of this was to do a conditional use for a mobile food unit, which is not gonna be mobile, I'm gonna make a motion to deny.
Well, there's two things,
still
though.
wants
There's
the
a
zoning.
zoning change and the conditional use.
Well,
From a general
I
office.
understand it, I haven't finished what I was gonna say. You know, I'm gonna make a motion to deny the conditional use permit for the mobile unit, cause it's not in play, anymore. I guess he said he's gonna move it, but it's not mobile, so you wouldn't need that. And then I guess we need a second motion for the zone
We have a
change.
second to that motion.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion moved and seconded on the floor. Any further discussion on that? Mr. Warren.
Could we move to approve but eliminate the mobile unit from the equation?
Yes.
That would be, I would make a substitute motion to approve the request, eliminating the possibility of a mobile truck, but no food on the property.
I think
Yeah,
that's what
Scott.
Bob was getting at.
I think we need a clarification here.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think everyone's trying to get to the same place. It's just a matter of how we get there. I'm looking at Jeff to provide some clarification on that.
I would prefer two motions because we have a zoning change and then a conditional use. And so I'm trying to just make two motions to be simpler and more clarification for that.
Okay, I'll go back to my original motion to deny the conditional use permit for the mobile.
And I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion to approve the original use of the property.
Now I got a question. I guess, do we still need to make, I mean, is it still, what do I want to say? Does it need a zone change still?
Yeah, I make a motion, we change from GO to LC.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
we're gonna move on. That's the end of the public part of the meeting, and we're gonna move on to other matters. And I'm gonna call on Scott at this time
Before
to
we go-
talk about.
before- I got a little concerned about a case we had today. That garage that was built, they came in front of us 3 or 4 months ago, and we directed them to get a plat made from an engineer to show exactly what it was. So that owner went to that expense. He did what we told him. He comes back and we deny it. I got heartburn over that. That building's not as close to the alley as the one on the other side of it. I think we look bad.
Well, I think we'd like for him to have had the location of the sewer shown, and he
Well, to
did.
start with, that's a private sewer line. It can be under a building as long as it's the right material, so I don't see that being an issue. Now, if it had been a main, that's a different story, but this wasn't a main. And if that's really what we wanted, we should have addressed that when we
Well,
deferred it.
I voted, as you know, for it to stay, because the white buildings down there were built right on the
That's what I looked at.
on the
I
alley.
agree with you on your comment. It's unfortunate we didn't bring that up at the time we were discussing the case.
I really thought it was gonna be approved. So I was sleeping at the wheel.
I know the feeling. Scott, go ahead with the discussion about possible change to the bylaws.
Okay, we'll do, real quick, just to tag on to that, if you still want to consider that case, we can look into options. I'm just hearing the comments and want to let you know that you may have options if the commission wants to do something, or the BZA wants to do something different.
I would appreciate that.
I would second his appreciation.
And
Need a
well,
motion on that to reconsider?
it's easy for me to say that, but I'm going to look over at Jeff to have the answers on it. So,
You're asking to a motion for reconsideration of the case we've previously heard?
I think it's just
Right, and the way it stands, it was denied, so he can't bring it back for another year. Is that correct?
I don't know if I think it's forever. I don't think it's a year. But this is not under a variance. It's not a changed circumstance type of situation that the code contemplates a year or 6 months. So under Robert's rules, if a motion to reconsider is made, it has to be done in the same hearing it's recommended, as opposed to another hearing. But in this particular case, since it's, in essence, there's nobody else here, you're gonna have to renotice the entire case and start over again if you do this.
Even though there were no objections and no one spoke on the case?
I think what we're after is just asking Scott to go back and do some research and then bring something back to us if there's any way to work around it.
I don't think you can do that unless you have a motion for reconsideration, but like I said, you're gonna have to, I think you're gonna have to renotice it and come back with
I'd
whatever
make a
these
motion to
options might
reconsider
be.
it as long as it's legal.
I guess one of my concerns would be, though, he was bringing that to us under the premise of being a shed. And in the process of that conversation, it wasn't really a
Right.
shed, it was an accessory dwelling unit.
That'd
It
be a
would
separate
require a
case.
conditional use, which he's not filed. So the problem would be the implication that if this was approved, that his intended use would also be approved. You'd have to make it very clear to this gentleman that a conditional use is required if he's going to utilize it for residential purposes.
That wasn't part of the request.
Motion.
That wasn't part of the request. And, you know, we can't file that for him, and he could be notified, and he could file for conditional use. And if there's a,
Boy, that's,
Well, not having a building permit for a garage is one thing, not having one for a dwelling unit really
I don't-
is concerning to me.
I don't think it was clear that that's what he said or meant. I think if I'm remembering the words precisely, the question was whether it was going to be used as part of the garage or as
Living, I asked the question. I
living.
asked him if it was gonna be used for a garage or for living conditions, and he said they needed.
May I ask you
Residential
something?
as
We're on
opposed
the
to living.
record, and I'd rather not debate this because it's subject to being appealed to district court at this point. So it's either we do a motion for reconsideration or we
Which I
drop
did.
it for, then
Okay,
it's
so
it's up
just
to
so
the
I'm-
chair, but I don't want to have continued discussion on it at this point.
I agree.
Just so I'm clear, we have a motion for reconsideration. Obviously, we can't reconstruct this today in terms of notice and having the applicant here. So we're just going to make a motion for reconsideration and a second. And that way we can bring it back to this body at a future meeting.
If possible.
That's correct. Mr. Johnson made the motion. That is correct. We're not hearing the case again. We can't do anything like that because there's nobody here at this point. So I think we'd have to.
Okay, we have a
start over.
motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying
I got
aye. Wait a
discussion,
minute.
because McKay was here when we voted, and now he's not here to vote on this. So does that make a difference also?
Still have a quorum.
Still got a
Okay,
quorum.
that's all I need to know.
All those say aye.
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 Nay.
Nay.
Let's do a roll call.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Fox,
Yes.
Duel,
Yes.
McKay's absent, Green's absent, Bill Johnson,
Yes.
Blick,
No.
Foster,
No.
Warren, Joe Johnson,
Yes.
Miles,
No.
Hartman,
Yes.
Aldrich,
No.
Williams Bay.
No.
Motion passes 6-5. Is that, hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 yeses. Motion passes 6-5.
Procedurally, there's two ways to go about this at this point. Now that there's been a motion for reconsideration, you know, I'm saying it has to be re-notified, so you could do a deferment to a date specific to give give staff time to do the 20-day notice and notify the applicant of this. Because if you just do a date certain, under the code, you don't have to renotice it. But I am concerned for due process purposes, but
Procedurally, we have an application deadline coming up on Monday for the first meeting in November. So that would, we've got all the required materials for notification. We could just add it to the list for the first meeting in November.
Yes.
I'd also like to add that you get with the applicant so he understands that this is strictly for a garage, not a residence, not none of that. That would have to come back as a separate case, because I don't want to get off on that tangent with this group.
Okay. Scott, go ahead. We have one more case or item to discuss, and that is a potential change to the bylaws. Just as a note, bylaw change requires 2/3 of the entire body, and that's 10 votes. And I think, what do we have, 11 right now?
Yes, I see 11.
Okay, you're on.
Okay. Well, we put together a staff report on this one. I think it provides most of the information, just simply that the last time the bylaws were updated was in 2022. And that was really to address the virtual participation options. There was the election that took place at your last meeting. There was discussion, or at least expression, of revisiting the bylaws. So we have drafted up those changes, and I apologize that you did not get a version with the track changes on, but I will just highlight very briefly where those are. That is on page 7. I want to make sure that that matches up with the copy you've got. Page 6, page 7, under section 2, Advanced Plans Committee, there in what is currently adopted and enforced is there was a reference that the vice chair would serve on the Advanced Plans Committee, and that is what has been stricken out on these draft bylaws, as well as some minor text amendments just for capital here, space there, those kind of things. So, but really the heart of it is to allow the vice chair to serve on either of the committee's advanced plans or subdivision committee. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
So who would chair advanced plans then?
It would be up to a vote of the members, I believe is how we do that.
Thank you.
So,
Scott, I'm just clear, I mean,
Yes, sir.
is this one person, 8 persons trying to change this, or what brought this about?
It's been a discussion with, I would say, the chairperson and vice chair with the elections coming up.
So anybody that wants to make a decision to change something here, we can just say we want to put it on the agenda and have it changed?
Well, sir, I would look to the leadership of the MAPC to give direction on those. But we did put together the edits and put it on the agenda. Yes, sir.
Well, since we just reviewed these 22, I mean, a lot of work went into that. I'm not for changing. Mr. Aldridge.
Yeah, I just think it's a slippery slope. I don't think we need to go down that path. There's a reason why we've had things set up the way we do. And it just, if someone doesn't want to serve on another committee, they have the option of resigning. And I don't think we need to be changing the bylaws just to make that change. And if nothing else, when the bylaws are changed, I think there should be a committee to look at that. And to look at some of those changes. I don't think it just needs to be arbitrarily changed just to, because someone doesn't want to go on another committee.
Do you see any benefit of having the committees comprised of folks that have more skills or background in an area that serves that committee well?
It's got nothing to do with it. What I'm looking at is the way the things are set up. And there's a reason why it was done that way. And just because someone doesn't want to go from one place to the other, we change the bylaws. I just think that's setting a bad precedent to do that. And I just don't think we need to go down that path.
As I understand it, it wasn't a case of just not wanting to. It was a case that person was chairing the subdivision committee. Is that correct?
Sure, but let me just say that I agreed to bring this before the body so that we could hear this out. And I'm not taking a position on this one way or the other. I think we need to have discussion and move ahead.
It's not a matter of me not wanting to switch. All right, I'm the one who is tentatively appointed as vice chair of MAPC. And the way the bylaws are written right now, it says the vice chair has to be a member of the Advanced Plans Committee. No one that we've asked on staff or on the board has been able to recall why that phrase is in the bylaws in the first place, why it limits the vice chair position to only Advanced Plan Committee members. The problem is that unless something has changed since Mr. Nix and Ms. Fox switched, nobody on Advanced Plans wants to switch with me and serve on subdivision. I could switch. I would like to stay on subdivision. I would be willing to switch, but there's nobody who's willing to come over and offer a slot. So just so you've got that straight.
I understand that, but what I'm saying here, I think we need to strongly, look at making any changes to the bylaws. I don't think it needs to be done the way it's been presented. I think there needs to be a bylaw committee to look at things. I just don't think it.
The other thing, the chair is the one that's going to select who's on what. That's
So,
exactly
it's-
right, and I
it's-
need to weigh in on that because,
That's the way it's
first
always
of
been.
all, we have some commitments in the bylaws that we have to have a balance between the city and the county on each of these. And I will make the appointments as to who serves on what committee. And if anybody wants to change or would like to, I'd appreciate it if you'd let me know, because we have 30 days, I believe, since I took over as chairman to make that decision, and I intend to make it in the next few days. So,
I do want to just say that I've been willing to go back and forth as needed, and if that's something that you know, I've served as a substitute or something like that for a subdivision now, but I'm always flexible with moving back and forth to these committees if needed.
would you be agreeable to move to subdivisions?
Certainly, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay. I think
The
we
other
can
thing
make
I'd
that
like to-
work out.
The other thing I'd like to say, I'm not a house builder, so ever since day one, 27 years ago, I never felt like advanced plan was that important to me. Once I was appointed to go over there, I was totally amazed at what I learned. So I had blinders on, and I'm glad I got to do it.
I think that we last year had a hard time getting the subdivision and advanced plan committee to make city and county. So I think the flexibility that the bylaws change recommends would make it easier. That doesn't mean it can't work, but, and I think with as I understand, we have changed where there's no remote option. Is that accurate? So that might make we haven't changed that yet? Okay. That could add to the difficulty too, to get a quorum potentially. So that's just another
And
consideration.
basically, if you wanted to stay on subdivision, you just wouldn't take your appointee of assistant on the full planning commission.
There are other options, but I will work out the balance between subdivisions and advanced plans. I think we need to take action on this motion that has been presented to us and move forward from there. I will make the assignments.
I don't think a motion's actually been made. And just in the event a motion is made to do something with the bylaws, it requires a 2/3 vote of the commission, which means there 10 of the 11 here present would have to vote in favor of it for it to pass.
Right. And it doesn't look like we're going to get that. So, right, there's no motion on the floor. We can just say this was presented for information. We considered it, and that was that.
Yeah, no action taken.
Can I ask a question? On this background, on the first statement, on September 15th, 2022, the Planning Commission approved updates on the bylaws that had to do with virtual participation. Is that 2023 or is that truly 2022?
That was in 2022, and this is the changes to the bylaws in order to allow us to take off the emergency meeting on all of the agendas, because that's how we were offering the virtual participation option. Now, there's no changes that are currently drafted to changes in the bylaws about the virtual participation. It's in there. It's been in there since 2022 as an option. The vote that you all took at the last meeting was to indicate that your preference is to not offer that. And so that's how we're responding in the agendas, the future agendas. We've eliminated that virtual participation option.
Okay, is there any further business to come before the Planning Commission today? If not, we stand adjourned.